Last week we had a rather rowdy episode on street food na nakakabusog talaga. And of course, after a hefty serving of street food, dapat syempre may panghimagas or dessert. Some people were asking me, George, what is panghimagas? That is dessert in Tagalog. So good morning. My name is George with Teddy and Bob here. And today, may nagkakaskas ng yelo.
Halo-halo.
Halo-halo.
Wala pa naman.
Ayun.
Halo-halo.
Today, we'll feature sweets, no? And we're very fortunate to have two of the best pastry chefs in the country. Yan, no? We start with the only sweet face among the frames here, Patty Loanzon. Patty, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
No? Of course, Patty is chef and also teaches at Penny Season's school, right?
Yes, yes, I do.
And she
Yes.
specializes in pastries and cakes, and we'll learn more about that later. Another pastry chef, well, he looks sweet, but let's see if... Ayun, no? Dicky Aracama, who used to be one of our DJs before. Dick Rees was his name, originally from Bacolod, now based in Manila, and one of the better pastry chefs in the country. Dicky, good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Yun, no? It's a good thing you just saw him now, because if you saw him earlier, he was in his birthday suit.
Kaya pang model yun eh.
And that was so totally disgusting.
Oh, that's the most disgusting thing you could ever see. Ayun, no? We also have, last week we had this gentleman with his wife, but now he's all alone. OJ, good morning, OJ.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me again.
Right, good, no? And si OJ, mahilig kumain niya ng sweets. And of course, our regular guest, almost a host, and almost didn't make it today because of so many concerns about his bike. Direk Yeye Yatko. Yay, good morning.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's safe. This would be a nice topic. So let's go, George.
All right, very nice, no? And of course, our two co-hosts here. Let's start off with Mr. BioFresh himself, Teddy S. Perenya.
hindi to sweet, hindi pa himagas, pero anti-microbial biofresh socks. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat, lalong-lalo na sa mga bisita natin.
Ayun, no? Tandaan nyo, hindi matamis yung biofresh socks, no? So don't do that at home. And of course, Bob Novales. Bob?
Sweet smelling naman din yung socks eh. Pero just the same, hello, good morning. So, ito yung aftermath ng ating rowdy episode last week. Yung puro street food. Ngayon naman, ang tawag natin dito regularly pagka Pilipino, ano yung matamis mo? Di ba? Matamis lang eh. Yung tinatawag.
Matamis ba dyan? May matamis ba dyan?
May dessert. Pero, iba-iba rin ang pangalan natin. Meron kang nakakaibang tawag dito, George, di ba? Meron kang...
Postre.
Espanyol,
postre. So, we'll find out kung saan nanggaling yung mga pangalan na yan at saka yung mga panghimagas, pang malalim na salita, or malamig. Ano man yung
sa malamig.
Bagay sa init ngayon. By the way, piyesta sa Laloma ngayon. So, binabati ko yung mga taga-Laloma.
Talaga? Bakit?
Bukas ang piyesta nila. Bukas. Bakit? Pero ngayon yung kasiyahan.
Ano yan? Lechonan? Sa lechon?
Lechonan dun eh.
Okay.
Malapit ka lang dyan.
Ang dessert doon, chicharon bituka at saka bulaklak.
Yeah.
Oo.
No, dati nga, nung bata kami, yung chicharon bituka at bulaklak, libre lang yun.
No, pinamimigay lang.
Bibili ka ng lechon, tapos bibigyan ka ng chicharon bituka at saka bulaklak. Ngayon, mas mahal pa yung chicharon.
Ngayon ang binibigay, dinuguan eh, di ba?
Dinuguan na lang. Ayun. Ako naman, pag nagpapaksiw, binibili ko yung frozen na lechon. Yung lechon kahapon na hindi naubos, mas mura yan eh. Anyway, huwag na tayo pumunta doon. Papaksiwin lang naman eh.
Baka malitson tayo dito.
Oo nga eh. Teka, let's get started. Ito, nakakatuwa because these two personalities are chefs today. came from a totally different line of work before they became chefs. You know, Patty, like you, for instance, we've known you, your husband and Jojun and I have known you ever since you were in Ateneo, and then you got into McCann Erickson. No, so ahensya, no. How did you get into the culinary business?
Actually, mahilig na ako magluto ever since I was a child. The kitchen has always been my sort of refuge. So every time I'm stressed, I would go into the kitchen and do something there. No? So I had hoped to get into a culinary course, but I was dissuaded by my titos. Kasi daw ang culinary at that time, it wasn't a career. So they wanted something that was more substantial. So napunta ako sa economics sa Ateneo. So I think economics in Ateneo. And then I went to McCann. Now the thing with McCann, you know how things are fixed up. I'm a believer, so I believe that God fixed it up for me. My clients were Del Monte. So I was there when they launched Del Monte Kitchenomics. Tapos meron akong Philips, kitchen equipment, puro food ba? So it just kind of reinforced what I really wanted. And then umalis ako because I gave birth, and then I got into part-time advertising. Airline naman. So food pa rin kasi destination, tapos food. And then there was one meeting na hindi natuloy, and I was in the Rockwell area, and Henny Season was conducting a class there. So to kill time, I joined the class, and that was it. Hinanap ko na siya, and then I joined her. Yeah, it all led to that. Talagang doon talaga. And then even when I stayed there, I wanted to get back into advertising. But something always kept coming up. And nandito talaga. So I figured this is where I'm meant to be. So this is where I stayed.
Well, at least whenever Jojun stresses you out, you could always run to your kitchen. Di ba?
Yeah.
Ganun ang nangyayari.
Actually, sabi ko kay Jojun, if I had not met him then and I had gone into culinary, I probably wouldn't have gotten married. Because culinary is so intense, parang there's no time for anything else. Yeah.
Well, I still remember the first time I met you, Patty. That was in White Plains. You had a class party, Ateneo class party. Ayun. And
birthday party.
Yeah, hinila ako ni Jojun noon eh. Pagdating namin doon, pare, mukhang mga anak na natin to mga to.
Yeah, that was the day before my graduation.
Hindi ba, George?
So that's the story of Patty and Jojun. We'll talk about that a little later on. Dicky Arakama here was a DJ of mine, Kiss FM. Tapos he became station manager of a couple of radio stations. Tapos, well, your brother owns a restaurant. He's a popular chef also. But how did you get into that? Why did you leave broadcast, Dicky?
Wala, nag-plateau na tayo. Di ba? Remember the time when we were together pa back in the 80s and everything. So we'll be looking for a lot of things. How you can stretch out. Depende sa management kung anong gusto nilang gagawin sa stasyon nila. Akin naman, pag ayaw mo, hindi kita pipilitin. Kung nag-plateau na actually, bale. To the point na parang year in, year out, yung kinikita mo pareho pa rin. Satisfied sa kita nila sa ginagawa mo, pero hindi masyado pag marami kang stasyon. You know naman the story of we were 5 then before, so normally priorities will be priorities on that, so that's what normally they would be doing. So yung kanilang tawag nito, my end naman, para sabi ko, kung tawag nito, they wanted to change something. And they want to for me, it's like, if you change something, what you bought that is iconic, I don't want to have that thing touched. So for a couple of years, I was holding it back. I was pushing it. We were getting good results. At the point I give in already. Sabi ko, okay, fine, you want to change it, go change it, I will retire. Kayo nang bala. So I was looking, prior to that, I asked my boss, pwede ba ako mag-aral muna ng tawag nito? Maghahanap ako ng something to look forward to, mag-aaral muna ako ulit. Sabi ko, magkukulinary ako. So he allowed. So I studied for 1 year sa Academy for International Culinary Arts, ICA, dito sa may Pasig lang, malapit lang. So yung klase ko sa umaga alas 7 hanggang alas 12. So alauna na sa opisina na ako ng hapon. Tapos umuwi ako ng mga 7 or 8 ng gabi na tapos lahat ng trabaho. Tapos the next day, babalik naman ako ng school. Anyway, the school was only 3 times a week. So there are days I'm in the office and there are days I finish a lot of things. So when the time dumating na, sabi ko sa boss na retire na ako. So May 7, sabi ko maghahanap na ako. Prior that what do you call this, that inspiration I was looking for, I found it in my brother. Nasa ilong ko lang pala. So my brother was doing a lot of things na prior me was in 2004, 2005. He was with the Philippine team already. Nananalo sila ng gold, naging silver, naging bronze. They tried out every country na pwede na idala yung Filipino food. Nadala naman nila lahat. So the inspiration was from my brother, from his teammates. One time I went with them in 2007, or I think I was in Hong Kong. Na I was the runner naman doon with the team. So with the Philippine team, hanap ako ng tawag ito, singkamas, radish. Yung singkamas natin dito, pati ganito kalaki. Pagdating ko sa Hong Kong, bili akong singkamas. Sabi ko, bili akong singkamas. Ganito kalaki. Parang kalabasa. Sabi ko, pwede na 2. 3 kilo na parang binibitbit ko. So dadalhin ko na naman yung sa tawag nito. I'm gonna bring it over to the other side, which was this Zealand. Actually, they ended up silver in that time. It was a proud moment for the Philippine team actually to be, what do you call this, nananalo siya within like 16 or 20 countries vying for the gold top prize. So that's my inspiration actually from my brother then. And from, of course, like our lolas, my mom especially, nakukuha naman natin. Tagakain lang tayo ng araw, so I'm just watching lang. My brother was the one who was getting it to. Until to this very day, in COVID times, my brother still cooks for us. Which is good. It's gourmet every day.
For Dicky kasi, nag-plateau siya. So, ibang plato na inasit niya tupag niya.
Yun na yun, sa payon.
Actually, oo nga. Actually, Dicky's brother is a trailblazer in the culinary.
Fern Narakama.
My brother's the Chef Fernando, so he's very, very particular when it comes to Filipino food. He wants to push it really because dinadala siya, kinukuha siya minsan Dubai, Spain, just to showcase the Filipino culture, the way we eat, what's this, what's that. So ginagamit niya yung mga local items natin. So that's why some chefs sometimes are finicky about getting imported items, everything, which you can go around dito na sa areas namin, like pwede kang gumamit ng sukang tuba, pwede kang sukang nipa. Yun yung mas finicky kami magluluto sa ganun.
Dicky, what was his last restaurant in BGC?
I'm sorry. Yes, it was in Aracama. Yes.
We used to go there always, and he would engage, diba, with the customers.
Yes, he would.
And I remember he would even give you telephone numbers of different suppliers, like if you wanted wine glasses and ganyan.
Yes.
He shares everything. So, and please give my regard.
I will. He's somewhere down there probably with the dog, or he's doing something upstairs in his garden. Kasi meron siyang garden sa taas. So we have arugulas, everything for this whole pandemic actually. He converted his area sa 3rd floor as a garden niya.
Morning, Boyet season. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Bo.
Si Boyet ang alam kong nagluluto ng steak ng parang tapa eh.
Boy, niluluto ka rito, boy.
Okay, let's go to Yay. What's your favorite dessert?
Alam mo, it's the combination eh. It really depends kung dito sa amin, we were talking about it earlier, yung iba-ibang tawag, 'di ba? Panghimagas, postre. Dito sa amin ang tawag pampatanggal lasa. Yung tanggal lumay.
Tanggal lumay.
Umayo.
So it's really the contrast, di ba? Yung salty and sweet. So depende yan. I have a nephew. Kung kumain siya, let's say, ng bistek Tagalog, meron siya parating hawak na either mangga or saging. So masarap yung pagkontra eh. So it really depends. May oras na gusto mo matamis lang. And I grew up kasi with my mom supplying different kinds, yung cassava cakes, ube, ano yun siya yung nagigiling mismo. And yun.
Ang hirap nun, Ang hirap
nun. Even yung yung pinag-usapan namin, mom ko walang tapon. Eh. Like let's say langka. Diba yung langka, pag binalatan mo yan, not the buto eh. Meron kang tinatanggal eh. Parang spine or something. Nagiging yung dito eh. Oo, nagiging, she turns it into a sweet ball. So, parang pastillas of sorts.
Ganun, Ang dami na lang dito eh.
May pangalan ba yun, Yeye? May pangalan
Hindi ko matandaan eh. Ginagawa lang ng mami ko yun eh. Nakikita ko na lang yan, nakahain sa yung mesa kasi namin, we grew up, hindi nawawala ng food. Yung tiran ng lunch, nandun pa rin. Tapos yung merienda, nandun pa rin, di ba? Abutan yung hapunan.
Kaya naman pala eh.
George. Yes, George. Ano nga daw, lumaki ako may vetchin sa labi.
May betchin.
Kung yung iba,
Yes,
Yeye, did you keep any of those recipes?
No eh,
Did you keep any of those recipes, Yeye?
Well, some of my sisters, but mostly the savory ones, like the kare-kare and the ganyan. Pero yung sweets, wala eh. Sayang. Alam mo talaga, sayang.
Yeah.
Kung yung iba nakulong sa refrigerator, si Yeye hindi na umabot sa refrigerator. Nasa mesa pa lang, ubus na eh.
Hindi.
Bantay pare,
hindi naman nakulong, hindi na tumayo.
Oo.
Bantay pare sa mga larong bata, di ba?
Yun na
kaya yun.
What about OJ? OJ, ikaw, what's your favorite nagsaserve ba si Marga ng dessert sa'yo?
Well, shameless plug, syempre, masarap ang chocolate cake ng wife ko. And just, yan. Ano kasi niya, idol niya kasi Christina Tosi and Martha Stewart. So she gets recipes from there and then she puts her own twist to it. Also cookies din, masarap. Pero ako, like direct, no? My earliest memories, kasi nga yun nga, it's for food, diba? If it's really something that brings you back to your childhood, na parang, oy, natikman ko to dati nung bata, o lumaki ako, ito pinapakain sa akin. Kasi my late mom used to be a baker. She didn't graduate any degree, palipat-lipat siya. Pero eventually, she got a certificate course from Binil. Before the school was established, the formal course was established. And then with that, she decided to try her luck. One of her last businesses was a bakery sa bahay lang namin. So the usual, mga what's this? Ensaymada. Hindi yung social na ensaymada ngayon. Yung bilog lang talaga with lots of mantikilya. Margarine pa nga. Yan, ayun talaga. Tapos asukal, napupudpuran, and then monay, and putok, which is smaller monay, na marami ring asukal sa taas. Yan. Yan yung mga lagi kaya minsan parang sinasabi namin baka malugi daw yung business kasi kami mga magkakapatid, kumukuha kami right after lunch or dinner dun sa bakery.
Sarap.
Pulot na lang ng pulot eh, no?
Pero dinideclare daw dapat yun. Kasi
pero dati, di ba, nung nga, the early times, chef is a lot younger. Nung panahon natin, George, wala naman masyadong bake shop eh, di ba? Ano lang yan, rolling pin.
Panaderia, marami.
Johnny's.
Kaya ang cake nun, mocha cake lang. Pang birthday, di ba?
Johnny's ang original nun eh, yung mocha cake.
Johnny's. Goldilocks. Di ba? Pero, ako yung parang, unang social na cake na iba, di ba ang nauso yung Black Forest?
Yun.
Di ba? Doon na medyo tumaas na yung nagkaroon na ng nag-level up.
Sa plaza yata, meron din nun.
Ayun. Yun ang Black Forest. Dikoy, ikaw, tanungin kita, Dicky. Anong ginagawa mo dyan? Hindi.
Wala, may napag-plug lang ako.
Bakit, hindi ba napag-usapan yung bakery, panaderia eh? Bakit tinawag panderegla yung panderegla?
Obviously.
Oo.
Parang tawag nito. Dami kasi.
During...
Sige,
Patty.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Hindi, Patty.
No, I was just going to say na there are many names for that kind of bread. So there's panderegla. When we were growing up, it was called sampaguita.
Sampaguita?
So I think the inside of that red thing was just old bread, diba? Stale bread.
Yeah,
They mix
it's old bread.
it, they add sweet.
Ganon.
And then they roll it back.
Parang pudding.
Yes.
Okay.
Oo, parang pudding, ginawang bread pudding. Kasi our ugali sa Filipino, whether it be sweet or savory, we never throw anything away.
Yeah.
We're very frugal as a people. So, in fact, one time we were thinking of a class na pwedeng ganun. So, anong bang pwede natin tawagin? From the garbage to the plate? Kasi you can do many things.
Yeah.
With the things that normally people would throw away, you can recycle. So I think
Actually,
it has many names.
Si OJ?
Actually, Chef, ano yan? It's the in thing right now sa hotel. Zero waste ang tawag natin dyan. It's about sustainability. Nga pwedeng i-recycle. Yun nga, we're talking about composting earlier, no? Lahat na biodegradable. Ilagay nyo sa garden ng, as in hotels, and other restaurants. And then grow your own produce from there.
I still would like to know kung bakit Sampaguita yung naging pangalan.
Oo
Tinapay.
Marami sila actually yung tawag nito, marami pangalan yun eh. Sa amin iba naman yung tawag dun sa Negros eh. Hindi ko lang ma-recall yung pangalan. Basta maraming version nung araw niyan sa may yellow pang ang kulay nung araw. Kasi puting lang yan eh.
Yun na nga. Dilaw yung iba eh.
Dilaw, may pula. Yun naman, wala naman yung green no? Parang Christmas naman masyado yun. Pero yun na yung nakakita ko parati. Those are the things that we have.
Yung sa Rainbow Grocery nga ni Mandam yan diyan sa Retiro di Quezon. Goldilocks ngayon. Dati may ganun nga eh. Dilaw yung dilaw at saka pula yung
Kalihim.
Nakaganyan.
Kalihim.
Si Oscar San Pedro, kalihim daw.
Kalihim.
Secretary. Diba?
Kalihim.
Ako enjoy going to a panaderia more than a bake shop, di ba? O bakery. Diba? May yung mga tiya ko sa Tanawan, Batangas. Meron kaming panaderia. So, ang dami nun, di ba? Ang dami mong pwede makain doon. Yan yung kalihim, yung pasensya. Iba-iba yung tawag eh. Tapos meron rin mga savory, mga tirang tinapay nga, ginagawa nila. O the edges, di ba? Biskotso. Matsakaw or biskotso. Pag matamis ata, ano ba pag matamis? Biskotso. Pag hindi siya pinatamis, matsakaw.
Yun ang pinaka-croutons. Di ba?
Ang sausaw sa kape, kubutan lang lamang yun yung pinapakain sa'yo.
Pinasok ni Oscar San Pedro kanina yung kalihim. Di ba secretary ibig sabihin?
Yeah.
Kalihim.
So yung palaman sa ba't secretary? Well, mga
Pero
pangalan na pinangyayari.
Kung babalik natin sa street food, panay rice-based yung o kamote yung ating street food na matamis.
Ano yung belekoy?
Biko. Belekoy is di ba? Yung makunat na parang bibingka. Pero ang kunat nun, kaya pag tinawag kang belekoy, ibig sabihin makunat ka eh. Hindi, totoo. Pag sinabing, belekoy naman to. It's a rice cake na napakakunat. It's like taffy. Taffy na yung halo.
Chewy siya.
Para siyang yung Chinese version niya, yung tira-tira, yung ginagawa. Diba?
Tira-tira. Sa amin naman tawag ng butong-butong because butong is stretched in Ilonggo.
Butong-butong.
Same thing. Butong-butong. It's like we
Stretch.
stretch it. Ganun din siya, same thing as tira-tira. You just put it in a hook. Hilahin mo lang yan. Balik mo naman. Hilahin mo naman siya. Hilahin mo na hilahin. So, ganun siya pag ginagawa
It's
yan.
really
Talaga
taffy,
pure sugar. It's taffy talaga
Daffy
siya.
siya, no? Oh.
Oo.
Peace, Michelle.
Oh, kasi it's, what do you call this? It's, sa negosyo mo kasi anything na pwede mong lagyan ng asukal, pwede. Kahit anong
Oo naman, di ba?
Kamoteng kahoy, kamote na pula at saka yelo, niyog, pwede mong gamitin yan. Kahit na yung lumang tinapay, pwede mo paggagamitan ng asukal. Anything that has to do o gusto mo namang dessert, as long as there's sugar and water, then you will have your dessert.
Yun. Dicky, eto, tanong ko sa'yo, no?
Simple na.
Bacolod ka di ba? Bacolod yan. Bakit sumikat yung Kalea ng ganun kasikat?
Kalea is because of people probably looking for an area na parang you can hang out with different cakes. Depende sa concept ng shop na yan. The concept of the shop actually was Kalea was great because meron silang good coffee and good choices of desserts that they have. Masang marami talaga. May maraming Kalea, then there's another store in Bacolod at the same time na ganun din ginagawa nila. Dalawa naman parati sila. Dati kasi Pendies lang yan eh. Pendies was the first one that Pendies, and there's Rollies at the earlier times, yung dalawa back in the 70s and 80s. Then ito naman based on the mga players na mga yon, which is Kalea, and other new stores that they come up with. Maraming players sa Negros ngayon, even chocolatiers they have.
Galing mo Kalea.
It's nice to have Ilonggo friends. Papasalubungan ka ng piyaya, Napoleones.
Yeah.
Napoleones.
And ano yung parang food for the gods? Yung the
Butterscotch.
cake.
Which
Butterscotch.
Butterscotch.
Yeah.
the butterscotch.
Ako binibiling
Which
ko
one?
palagi Baquilios eh.
Si Shelly mo.
Barquillo.
Ay, Shelly.
Yun. Marami siya actually.
Pero
marami
kailangan
siyang-
natin banggitin. Kailangan natin banggitin bago tayo magtuloy ng kwentuhan. Yung baligtad ng dessert, ano?
Ano?
Stress.
Stress.
Stress. Oo, kaya kung stress ka, mag-dessert ka.
Oo.
Ano lagi?
Make sense. Make sense yun.
Hindi, pero sugar kasi may ano siya talaga eh. Chemical component na endorphins. Tumataas yung mood mo once you eat something sweet.
Energy. Oo.
Chocolate.
Tama.
Chocolate.
That's one of our secrets pag shooting, when I'm shooting kids. Mga pag 3, 4, tapos di ba medyo inaantok na.
Ano ko,
So,
asukal na lang.
bubulungan mo na ng pakainin nyo ng candy or pakainin nyo ng painumin yung soft drinks. Siyempre, trade secret yun. Biglang nabubuhay yung bata, pero may crash eh. Nagka-crash talaga.
After a while,
Yeah.
Tulog agad.
sugar rush.
Lahat naman tayo magka-crash thereafter after you eat so much of the sweets. You will crash. Mapapagod ka. That's why sometimes desserts are put after a meal. Doon siya nalalagay. Never naman siya nalalagay sa gitna. Or merienda is different naman because if you got the choices, it's emada, talihim, or whatever. Kasi
But chef, my wife and my daughter, when we go to buffets, like let's say in Spiral or the first stop would always be the dessert table or the spread for dessert.
First stop?
Talaga, ano sila eh, sweet teas eh. So, sabi ko nga, hindi ba ako lugi nun? Pero, di ba, kung doon ka masaya eh, sige.
Oh, you pay 1,000 to 2,500 for the buffet. Tapos dessert yung kakainin. Pero,
yun lang nauuna lang.
nauuna. For siyempre kasi unauna yung sugar mo, iba naman. It depends on the person also at the same time, how he has his composition, how he eats. Kasi sa atin, kasi noon, kinaugulian na natin na normally desserts would come in after a heavy meal just to wipe away or we call
tanggal lasa.
We call it kung sa mga pa yan sa mga degustasyon pa amuse-bouche to cleanse your palate.
Yeah.
Amuse the palate.
Amuse-bouche.
In
Yeah.
between.
Yes.
In between.
In between the courses.
Pero
no?
just to bring it in, yung hindi naman lahat ng dessert stuff natin kailangan may asukal, di ba?
Yes, people are conscious with sugar now.
Sige, Patty, please.
I think you have to define. No? Because like a lot of people, for example, will take ensaymada for a dessert, but that actually should not be. We have something called breads, and then we have quick breads, like muffins. Muffins are not cupcakes. They're not supposed to be presented as desserts.
Mm-mm.
So tea time yan, breakfast, ganyan. But the Filipinos will eat
Merienda.
breakfast for lunch. So it doesn't matter, or merienda. So may ganun din. So parang in a household, like for me, I would monitor what they're eating. So pag dessert lang siya. Pag merienda, nandun lang siya, like yeye, nandyan lang siya. So pag may stress, after a meeting, they will go to the kitchen and slice a cake or what, no? But control ang dessert namin dito.
In spite of the fact that you're a pastry chef, di ba? That's the irony of it all.
Actually, George, I'm not a pastry chef. I'm hot kitchen. Pero ako kasi I believe that when you present hot food, a meal, you should also have something panghimagas for after. Because that also is a good practice in eating. It's to signify the end of your meal. Ang problema, after the dessert, meron pang isang subo ng adobo. Salty na naman yan.
Nako, yun yung mahirap. Yun yung mahirap.
So,
Pag mo nga yun lahat.
Yun ang problema.
Parang yan eh. Parang the first Noel yan. Hindi mo alam kung kailan matatapos yung kanta eh. Balik lang ng balik.
Di ba parang sa McDonald's, pag kumakain ka ng Sunday, tapos may French fries ka, ikasawsaw mo na lang eh, di ba? Hindi mo na alam kung anong mauuna, anong mauuna.
Hindi, kaya lang, that's very true sa mga Pinoy. Yung usually ang desserts kasi, di ba, kapiranggut lang eh. Yung talagang to end the meal.
Ano lang, di ba? Palate cleanser lang talaga eh.
Dito hindi. Lamon pa rin yung dessert eh, no?
It's a separate experience.
Yeah.
Di ba kaya nauso sa mga catering ngayon, mapapansin nyo, dati catering, ano lang naman ang, di ba, may small cakes. Ngayon, yung mga catering, they offer bibingka and puto bongbong as dessert.
May champurado pa.
Halo-halo.
Speaking of halo-halo.
Halo-halo is okay as a dessert.
Yung halo-halo, there was a time na isa lang ang concept natin ng halo-halo, di ba? Yung mixture. Tapos yung kinaskas na yelo. Pero these times, parang ang dami ng variant ng halo-halo. Can you tell us about this?
Nag-upisa yan sa Chinese restaurant,
actually,
di ba? Yung gano'n?
I think kasi nung unang panahon, yung ating desserts have always been very simple. They're categorized. So meron kang, kunwari, brazo de Mercedes or yema or leche flan. But then, through the ages, people have gone out, have studied, and then they've made things more complicated because of the blending of flavors. So ngayon, yung leche flan mo is not just leche flan. May pastillas, may whatever. So noon, life was simpler. It was just, pag sinabi mong brazo de Mercedes, alam mo na kung ano lasa nun. Pero ngayon, may salted egg brazo de Mercedes, may ube na brazo de Mercedes, may frozen, may hindi, di ba? May flat, may nakaroll. So, yun.
I remember.
Halo-halo, ganun din, di ba?
Dati ang halo-halo, I remember sa Little Quiapo when I was young. Ang laman lang nun.
Ang halo-halo.
Munggo, beans, pinipig, yun lang. No?
Yung ulaman.
Saging and langka.
Wala pang gulaman dati, tsaka manata ni Coco eh. Nadagdag na lang yan eh. But the original Little Quiapo, beans, munggo, and pinipig lang talaga ang staple nila.
Pati yung leche flan sa taas, wala pa.
Wala pa noon.
Wala pa
And
yun
then
araw.
it became simple again, di ba? Because of, it became regional.
Razon.
Razons. It's Kapampangan. Dito in
Digmans.
Marikina, we have another one. Ang kasama naman niya, pastillas. Kabigtings.
Kabigtings. Masarap yung kabigtings. Pastillas de
Pero
leche
mga
din
maputing
nalagay.
halo-halo yan eh. Parang yung ginagawa ng rasons, maputing halo-halo, di ba?
Kasi wala
kang makita
na
ingredient
wala
na beans.
wala siyang beans na kinulayan. Kaya maputi siya, di ba? Ano lang yan makapuno and sagi.
That's why sa mga
Banana,
inasal,
yeah.
dalawa yung maintain nilang flavors eh. Isa yung maputi, isa yung sanay tayo, yung parang chowking na halo-halo. Ganun.
Oh,
Yun
yun
sa mga
yung-
inasal eh.
Yung chowking talaga na gano'n ng halo-halong yung malaki talaga. Yung nasa hindi yung baso eh.
May ice cream.
May
Oo.
bowl.
May sa Peninsula, si Hotel Peninsula, yung di ba halo-halo na galaki.
Oo.
Parang gabatya.
Nakakatakot na yung itsura nun, di ba? Tapos
Di ba
dessert
sa
ang tawag
Max,
doon.
sa Maxes meron rin nun, yung parang
Malaki
for
rin.
sharing na halo-halo.
Sharing. Pero bawal na ngayon muna yan.
Oo nga.
At saka dito, no, di ba Patty, Dicky, dessert is usually partnered with wine also. It's paired with wine.
Yes, you can.
Which
You can.
which is not really done here in the Philippines. Like, give us an example, Dicky. Anong mga magagandang dessert na paired with wine?
You
Ang
can
alam
have
ko
a
lang,
cheese.
chocolate at saka wine yan. Sarap ng
Well,
chocolate
that's the
at
most
saka wine.
common actually. That's how we
Oh.
started naman lahat eh. You can have a cheesecake if you want to. It's not really a problem. You can have a vanilla ice cream with something else with added little nuts to go through with what you're having. So it's endless in the same time and how we have our instead of when you kung sa mga aperitif mo, you can make use of that at the same time then. Together kasi normally we would mix that with our what do you call this? Depends sa gusto mo na klase na if you want to have a creme brulee with something that's sharper in taste, armagnac you can put also the same time. You can add cognac in your chocolate. We normally would, if you're gonna make a ganache, like for me, if I'm gonna make a ganache, ganache is couverture chocolate and 1 part couverture
Cream.
chocolate, 1 part cream. Then you boil the cream, then you add it and let it sit first for a while, at 3 minutes, magme-melt yung chocolate. You start mixing it slowly from start in the middle, then you go into the sides na rin. Tapos magdadag ka na 3, 4, or 5 tablespoons of whatever liquor you want. You can put that also at the same time. So marami siyang pwedeng paggagawan. The wine and the pairing, it's for us to study the same thing on how we appreciate wine together with other things.
Yeah.
Kung gusto
Ah.
mo, it's your, ikaw na yan, nasa iyo na rin at the same time on how you wanna have the pairing if you want to. It doesn't stop from there.
One of the
Kami
most
in our whiskey group, we pair the strong whiskeys, the peated ones, we call them the peated. We call it lasang Mercury drugstore, yung amoy hospital. With dark chocolate or chocolate cake. Basta yung ganun yung lasa, yung kanyang flavor profile parate. So it's good to end the night with a nice strong whiskey with
a single malt.
Dessert.
You can.
Yeah.
You can mix your whiskey and chocolate. It's not really a problem.
And I have friends when we go drinking also. We end the night with vanilla ice cream with bourbon naman, American whiskey.
Wow.
So infused.
Yes.
Ako one of my
That's a good
most memorable desserts, no. Kasama ko sila Patty noon and Jojo. Mario's Restaurant, no. We had Mango Jubilee. We had Mango Jubilee, we had cognac, tapos we had cigar.
Yeah.
Sinindihan pa yung cigar dun sa cognac, dinip sa cognac, tapos yun.
Oh, po.
Like a boss.
Titikas
But
nyo.
that was memorable. Grabe yun. No? Mario's here in Tomas Morato. They don't do that anymore, obviously, because you're not allowed to smoke inside a restaurant anymore. No? But that was memorable talaga. At saka, ang ganda ng
Talagang
combination.
cigar, as in tabako.
Cigar. Tabako talaga.
Tabako.
Oo. Panalo.
Okay. Yung mga matatanda.
Ano yung mga
Nilulong.
secret dessert sources nyo? Kasi I remember there was a time si Patty posted about that small bake shop right before Gate 1 of Ateneo sa Katipunan, di ba? Yung parang hindi mo siya makikita kasi it's a cookie place, remember, Patty?
Cookie Monster?
Yeah. That was no. It was owned by the diocese. I don't know if they still have it, but it was there during my time. Tagal na nun.
Nandun pa ata.
Sweet craft ba? Sweet something? Sweet something. But then it was owned by the diocese. It was across nga, Gate 3. Sweet Haven.
Ano?
Yeah, Sweet Haven.
Inspiration.
Sweet Haven.
Became
Oo.
Sweet Inspiration. No, Pati, you wrote before in Katipunan, going towards UP,
Aurora.
that side. So ano ba yun? Northbound.
Oh my gosh, I can't remember.
There's a small
don't
bake
remember.
shop. Basta nandun siya sa service road nung tulay, nung flyover. And they serve, because of that, we learned we buy cookies from there also.
Right. Right beside the grade school, right
Gate,
beside
yeah.
there's an empty lot there. And then the gate of grade school. I forgot the name, but they had very good cookies there. I don't know if it's still open. The one who brought me
It is.
was,
I don't know now, but
Sina. Yeah, it's right beside, just before the wall of Ateneo. It's there.
But that's a-
Pascual ang
that's a-
nagdala sa akin.
That's a power
Di ba bangko
transformer plant now. Hindi, power transformer ng Meralco yun, di ba?
hindi. Doon siya sa
I think
George,
Blue.
yung dating may golf, mini golf.
Ay, oo.
Yeah.
Hindi,
Yeah.
malalaman ko yun sa Tuesday. Paano I'm having my vaccine at Ateneo on Tuesday. So,
Ang katabi
dadaanan
niyo
ko yun.
ngayon, George, kung bukas pa yung Husqvarna na heavy equipment.
Aha, sige. Doon ako iikot sa Doon ako iikot sa Aurora Boulevard.
Pag nandun pa,
makita
George,
ko.
bili mo na lang kami.
Sige.
Hindi,
Pabili nga ng-
pabili nga ng
because of
biscuit.
pandemic, ang daming masasarap na cookies. Or, di ba?
Thank you, Shelly.
Yung order.
Happy birthday kay Jojo, ah. Jojo Ong, happy birthday to you.
Pero
Actually,
Oo.
Filipino
Cookies.
dessert, hindi, sweet. Yung yung turon sa Esteban Navada.
Ayun, I love
Step
Turon.
Navada naman.
I love turon. Yeah. My favorite turon I tasted in Laguna. I visited Yasaki Torres. And they have like small stalls inside for the people. Mura lang yon. It was like 12 pesos a piece. So, ang sarap ng turon niya. It had langka. Tapos yung pagka-crisp kasi, important sa akin, yung hindi masyado makapal. Pero crispy yung balat. Ang sarap niya. Sobra.
Tsaka masarap ang turon pag overripe yung saging para malambot na.
Pati ganong ka solid dapat yung coating niya ng sugar bago maging talagang perfect yung turon na yun.
Actually, mahirap. Ako, I cannot do it I don't know how to do it. Wala akong touch. But it shouldn't be super coated with sugar because it will be too sweet.
Yeah.
So this one that I was talking to you about was tama lang yung sugar niya. It was very, very thinly coated. Wala siyang, those spots of sugar that
Arnibal.
would melt
Caramel.
onto the cover.
Yung nagka-caramelize
Oo,
siya.
yung arnibal niya, hindi, ito glazed lang siya, if you can imagine it. It's just parang dinip sa sugar. Ang sarap.
Sugar bago pinray.
Kaso nasa Yasaki Torres lang siya sa loob.
Or after.
But masarap rin na turon yung sa Shopsville, sa Green Hills. Yung nandun lang sa Sagdanan. I don't know if you tried that. There's this lady or guy who sells nakabayong,
Ito
nakabasket.
strange Yeah, ito yung strange Bakit nireveal natin sa atin ni George last week to Bakit yung turon na may langka ayaw mo?
Ako?
Hindi, ako gusto ko yun. Si
Si
George
George.
ang may ayaw.
Ako
Si George,
ayaw ko
George
talaga
yun.
Ayaw ko. Nakakatawa nga
I love langka.
We just harvested what? About 4 huge langkas in our tree here, no? And siyempre gumagawa may santol ako, bayabas. Yung bayabas ko, sinlaki ng buko Ganyan, no?
Ayot naman yung bayabas.
Uy, bayabas. Pag ginatang bayabas, masarap.
Oo.
Diba?
Hindi. Anyway, yung langka,
Putukan.
we give it away na lang dahil I don't eat it, no? Ito, gumawa na naman ng turon yung maid kahapon. May langka, hindi na naman ako nakakain ng turon. No? Ayoko talaga But, I eat the langka seeds.
Yung buto.
Oh, yan, kinakain
I
namin
eat
yan.
the langka seeds. I dip it in bagoong and it's heaven.
Ginagawa namin candy yan sa mga sa Negros.
Oh. Ako,
Hindi
sa
magandang
bagoong.
laro ng bata yun lang ka eh. Salo-saluhin nyo. Diba?
Durian na lang gawin mo, mas maganda.
I-alternate mo nga sa durian.
How about langka? Langka in ginataan, George. Do you eat? Yung
No,
halong ginataan na bilo-bilo?
Hindi mo,
Bilo-bilo.
So
Hindi ka talaga
mangyayari,
malasa.
I eat ginataan, no? Tapos ang leftovers ko, kulay dilaw na lahat.
Langka.
George,
Sarap
huwag mo
ng
na lang sa katulong mo. Gusto mo lang walang lang kain yung tawag ito, yung turon mo. Ang ginagawa namin doon, niluluto mo na yung saging. Pagkatapos, set aside mo yung saging mo. Tapos, lalagyan namin sa apa yan. Doon ka maglalagay ng asukal sa tawag ito. Hindi sa balot, sa loob. Doon mo siya, tapos roll mo siya. Kasi, kung gusto mo ng crispy na balat ng turon, doon mo siya makukuha na walang tawag ito. Mas maganda yung labas niya.
Yan yung style din ng mga nagluluto sa amin, yung mga kasamahan namin dito, kasambahay namin. Kasi mga taga-Bacolod sila, Digi. Sakto.
Yung kami ayaw namin yung tawag nito, yung kakalat yung tawag nito, yung asukal. Ayoko na makita na nung bata pa ako, yung brown sugar lang sa central. Parang
Bukayo.
doon kami nagtawag nito, doon kami tinatakbo namin yan, puro asukal lang lahat yan, tapos pakainin mo ako ng asukal, parang, di ba? Huwag naman. That's how you wanna have, kasi
So you just
crispy
fry
ang
the
habol mo
saba?
dito turon.
Dicky,
You fry the saba first,
do you just
tapos
fry
take
the
it out.
saba?
Sugar.
Yeah, tapos take it out, then sugar, sprinkle the sugar on top, the brown sugar if you want, you can do muscovado if you want to. So brown sugar ka na lang, tapos roll it, tapos refry mo na lang yung apa mo. Practice mas madali. Then the brown, kasi makokontrol mo yung brown niya, kasi pag yung hilaw, lalagay mo sa apa,
Tama.
yung apa mo.
That makes sense.
So,
That makes
so
sense.
tendency nun, hindi siya maluluto ng toro. So
Just
it's
to get
much
things,
more,
just to clear it up, yung apa referring to yung lumpia
Oh,
wrapper.
Proper.
Dito kasi sa Maynila, yung apa, ano yan eh,
Cone.
sa ice cream.
Ice cream
yung
cone.
ice cream cone, sorry.
Kami rin apa eh. Actually, pag nagluluto ng lumpia yung lola ko dati, no, 10 kami sa pamilya, di ba? Ang dami. So, limitado yung lumpia. Kung kula yayay, ang dami sobra. Kami naman, tigalawa lang ha, yung mga ganyan. No. Tapos, syempre, ubos na yung laman ng lumpia. So, yung ibang yung apa, fina-fry na lang niya. Yun ang gustong-gusto namin, yung fried apa.
Uy, there was a time sa
Yes.
Servini, George, sa cafeteria ng Servini sa Ateneo.
Yes.
Sabihin nila yung hamburger sandwich with free chips. Yung ano yun, piniritong balat ng lumpia.
Lumpia wrapper.
Yun.
Yeah.
Alam mo kung
Correct.
sino yung concessionaire doon sa Servini. Tita ko. That's right.
Okay. Sa inyo pala nang galing yun. Oy, tapos yung di ba, mahilig rin nga tayo. Yan, yung halo-halo. May ginataang halo-halo. Di ba yung naka-tray, yung sapin-sapin? It's just a medley of different, kumbaga sa ice cream na Italian, Neapolitan, di ba? Yung maraming flavors. Ano ba ang nasa
sapin-sapin?
Sapin-sapin.
Yeah, Patty o Dicky.
Glutinous rice.
May bibingka pa yun, di ba?
Bibingka, di ba? Bibingka, kutsinta.
It's like mochi. It's mochi.
Yes.
Tapos you cook it like mochi and then you put it over, then you set it, then you cook another batch, then you set. It's like gelatin. So when you layer it, it's preset, tapos layered. Si Henny teaches that. Ang sarap ng sapin-sapin. It's so good. Actually, isang flavor lang siya, iba-ibang kulay lang.
Yeah,
Food coloring lang.
That originated in Malabon, di ba? Malabon ba?
Diba? But what I'm talking about is the pabilog na sapin-sapin. Actually, hindi siya naka-layer, di ba? Yun na nga, merong representation ng kutsinta, may biko,
Puto
may
maya.
ube. Diba, iba-iba eh.
Yeah.
Interesting rin ang sabi.
United
Sa
Colors of
Philippines, sa
Benetton.
tawag ito,
Yun.
sa Malaysia,
Colors
meron din
pa
yan, Indonesia.
Ha? Indonesia?
Yeah, they have a different one, but they call it kui.
Yes.
Kui, something like that. So that's how we call it. Layered naman siya lahat, pero hindi siya ganun as thick as compared to ours. Sakto lang yung sa kanila. Sa atin kasi glutinous ginagamit natin when we start layering everything together. So
Alam
yung
mo,
ginagamit
shameless plug. Hindi naman hindi ko kilala, hindi ko pero nireregalo sa amin minsan mga kaibigan namin yung gano'n na isang box ng halo-halo
Bilao.
sapin-sapin. Oh, yung aling kika sa kainta. Yun ang
Kaya naman.
Kika.
Dolores.
aling kika.
Yun ang sikat eh, di ba? Yung Dolores.
Dolores kakanin.
Dolores sa Malabon.
Oy, syempre, wag niyong kakalimutan yung yung kay Gary.
Yeah.
Yung sumang latik ni Tita pa rin.
Yan.
Diba?
That's so Filipino also. Ano bang isang region yun? Saan ang galing yun?
Samar kami. That's Samar.
Yung luto na yon, George, gawa sa
Yeah.
Samar. O talagang family, ano lang yun? Family recipe.
Family recipe yun, but it originated in Samar. But we have two sauces. Yung kila Gary, brown sauce yun, di ba? Yung sa lola ko, she uses white sauce. Ang inaano niya, white sugar, and binalagyan niya ng linga ng sesame seeds. So, very fragrant.
Isipin mo, parang
Creamy
langgunisa
rin.
natin, ang suman, ang daming klase.
Yun na nga.
Yes. May galing
Suki
sa...
lang.
Regional.
May butin lang tawag nito. Yung di ba kay Dolor, meron siya yung green na kulay na tawag nito. Na suman.
Pinipig.
Pinipig.
Pinipig
Oo,
ba?
pinipig.
Normally kasi,
Yeah.
tinatanong ko sa taga sa Pampanga, isang kaibigan kong chef din, pastry chef din, sabi niya, hindi, yung, bakit sabi ko, kulay green ba color niya? Hindi, galing mismo sa kanyan sa palay. Yung kakalabas pa lang na palay, pala doon pala yung kinitang sina-harvest na nila for that.
Yeah, that's pinipig, di ba?
Oo. Pero so the color is green, that's why,
Yeah,
akala ko
so
yun,
fresh pa,
pag
bata pa.
bata pa. So yung ginagawa
Mura,
nila.
they call it mura pa.
Oo. Pero masarap siya. Nakatikim na ba kayo ng tawag nito? Kending santol.
Oo, Kending Santol.
Balat ng santol.
Yeah.
Yep.
Balat ng santol.
Oscar San Pedro, kailangan pakilala mo sa amin kung ano yung inutak ng tagig ni Bateros.
Ay,
It's like linupak, di ba? Para siyang nilupak.
undercook.
Yung inutak.
Undercook na tawag nito. Undercook na undercook siya na tawag nito. Kakanin. Inutak.
Ano naman yung binagol? Binagol.
Binagol, that's very Cebuano. That's soft naman ata. At binagol comes from the, what do you call this? Bagul kasi in the language sa Ilonggo or Visayan is yung bao ng tawag nito.
Ay, matamis na bao.
Oo. Or like this from the shell of that, what do you call this? Yung binagol na tawag namin. Yung santol na try niya yun. Nanay ko, kasi my mom is from Noveleta, Cavite. So very Tagalog yun.
Masarap ang santol.
Yung balat na santol, yung mga bangkok natin na malalaki. So matitira yan. Sabi niya, huwag itapon yan. Kasi gagawin ko yung candy. So gagawin yung candy yun. We will, what do you call this? Yung kahit may balat, lalagay mo sa tubig, lalagyan namin ng apog. It's something like a shell. It's grinded shell that we normally, my mom would put na tawag dito. It's like a lime na tawag nito na version.
Lime powder.
So, meron siyang ganun. Binibili hanggang yung nakakabili pa ako sa market. Nabibili pa sa market niyan. So, let's say for 2 days, 3 days, hanggang mag-take effect na siya to soften the, what do you call this, yung kanyang tawag ito, yung meat ng tawag ito, yung outer shell ng santol. Tapos after that, ready na siya, babalatan niya yan lahat. So, we'll take out the peel, lahat. Tapos we'll wash it again, let it stay overnight. Then, the next day, you'll cook it with just water and sugar. Yun lang yung pag-process niya. So, yun lang yung tawag nito. This is, I really not see these things naka-bottle or whatsoever. Pero, But it's a nice dessert actually to have parang santol na balat na santol. Pwede palang gawin ng tawag ito as a dessert. So kami nung basta nanay ko dati panahon ng nagsantol yun mismo. After 3 weeks yan, meron na kami niyang tawag sa bahay. May
Kami
dad kasi
ano?
sa sweet tooth
Is it
din.
is it placed naka-syrup siya, Dicky?
Yes, nakasyrup siya.
Naka-syrup or dry?
Hindi siya nakasyrup
okay.
talaga siya.
Because
Has to be water and sugar na talaga siya.
kasi we can what we do with orange peel or lemon peel or calamansi
Yeah.
peel, we do the same
Yeah.
thing, but we don't use lime. What we do is we boil it with salt so that the rind, not yung bitterness ng
Yeah.
rind natatanggal. So
Yeah,
we
mapait
just
yun eh.
boil it in salt for 3 times, and then you cook it in a syrup, but it dries out, so it looks like orange rind candy. Then you roll it
Yeah.
in sugar.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's what we do with that. I wonder if it will work with santol candy. That would be very interesting.
Zero waste, ha? Zero waste.
You waste that, you don't waste anything.
Santol?
Santol,
Zero
pwede
waste.
siyang kainin. Talagang
Zero
gano'n
waste.
siya. Hindi na namin kailangan ng tawag ito kasi kung when I were studying pa in, what do you call this, kahit na sa school nung araw, the sugar should be contained. Kailangan ko contain mo yung sugar mo. Meron kaming, we have this machine, we have this little gadget that you just take out the sugar and you put it inside, then you look into it para siyang you have to look it under the sun para meron siya against the lights, at least you can see that line na hindi na siya matamis or something. I forgot the name of that, what do you call this, of that equipment that we have just to lower your sugar content. That's a very French way of doing what do you call this, na yung mga orange rinds, yung mga cuts like that. Because orange, tapos you make that as, actually you can buy that now ngayon, Chef Patty. May gumagawa na ngayon, but everything is imported. The orange rind na cuts na parang Valencia oranges na makakapal, it's very, very, very good. Sarap siya. We normally would mix that with our petit fours. Petit fours is like yung magpupunta ka sa buffet, yung maliliit na cuts na cake, gano'n, we call it petit fours. These are layered na mga tawag ito, sponge cakes, then we lay it with whatever that you want, the fillings that you want, lahat. So, kung sa pastry, marami pag-uusapan sa pastry. Kung gusto mo ng matamis, pwede kitang gawin yung mga tawag ito, yung cavity mo pipiyesa sa loob sa sobrang tamis na kinakain mo, meron din yan.
Mabubutas ka agad yung ngipin.
Tocino
Chef,
del
I think
cielo.
Hindi, naalala ko pag gano'n yung mga peanut brittle ng Baguio, di ba?
Ayun. Yung
So, iniisip mo pa lang, nabubutas na yung ngipin mo.
pati yung Romanos.
Kaya nga, kayo, that's my question. Team Good Shepherd or Team Romanas?
Romanas ako. Dahil buo yung mani eh. Yun ang ano doon eh. Iba pa rin yung peanuts talaga kinakain mo. OJ.
Kahit candy, pwede naman kayo gumawa ng candy. Yun lang nga, kailangan mo na ng pectin. Kung dumating ako dito, nag-ambisyon ako dati, siguro bili ko strawberry, ganito, frozen, tutunahin ko to. Gagawin ko to compote, tapos lagyan ko ng pectin para matawag ito, para magiging jelly siya. You can revert that eh, pwede ba siya convert? Kaso wala akong makakano dito ng pectin, wala na, compote na lalabas niya. So para siyang ginawa mo na lang siyang jam na lang siya. But it's nice to have yung mga, pag gumagawa ka ng jelly, yun lang, the only thing is walang available na pectin na specific, may specific na pectin pa yan. It has a number. And something or PN365 or kasi pag mali yung gamitin yung pectin, hindi siya magtawag nito, hindi siya magde-develop. So
is that why ano?
Chef, why not gelatin? Why not gelatin?
It cannot hold well. No, it doesn't really hold well.
Even if you puree.
Yeah, the same thing. Hindi siya mag-hold sa gelatin. Hindi kaya ng gelatin. Unless that you have the pectin itself na talagang kukompress niya lahat sila tawag ito. Magiging formed siya. That's why when I was studying this in Australia, there was this company that yun na talagang ginagawa niya. He's the one who supplies us the pectin sa school. Lahat ng gusto namin gawin na tawag ito, from raspberries, strawberries, you name everything, gagawin namin jelly, pwede namin gawin jelly.
But you know, yun ang nagtataka ako. No? Like, I cook. But not, for the life of me, I can't bake. No? I bake, kaya lang, hindi maganda itsura ng mga binibake ko eh. No? So, but sa cooking kasi, tansyahan eh. Di ba? Yung, how many teaspoons? Ewan. Basta dampot lang, ganyan. But in baking daw, lahat eksakto. Why so, Pat? Patty, why is there a science behind baking?
Because baking, the recipes of baking are actually considered formulas. So everything has to be balanced. If you change something in the recipe, it will imbalance. It will either go one way or the other. But as a teacher, kasi I don't believe in that na I will tell your students na ito lang, this is the recipe, just follow it. Ako, I prefer na this is the recipe. If you want to change something, make sure that you understand what it is that you're changing. And then do not expect that the final product will be the same as what you first baked. It's always important for people who, especially who are baking, if you're going to start, George, is you follow the recipe first, and then you look at how it came out, and then you can play around with the others. So measurement is very particular. The kind of ingredient that you use is also very particular. And the baking time. Baking time is dependent on the temperature. So everything is preheated. So it's exact in that way. In cooking, I also think that it has a science behind it. So when you change your recipe, you have to also understand what it is you are removing so that you can put back what to make things balanced. So like, for example, in baking, you cannot just say, I'll take out all-purpose flour and the only one I have is cake flour. So you can't do that because the gluten and the protein contents are different. Or you'll say, I'll just take out sugar and I'll put Splenda. You can't do that also because sugar is a liquid ingredient. It has more things than just sweetening. So you need to balance things out. If you're going to remove, you need to replace. But when you replace, you have to replace with the same thing. And it's the same with cooking also. The thing lang you think about cooking, you say that it has more flexibility is because you can correct. While you're cooking, you can correct. In baking, once you put it in the oven, you can only pray that it will come out okay. And you rely on the process because you can't touch it anymore. Okay, so that's the only reason why. But
sometimes it even
as a teacher, I just sorry.
Sometimes it even depends on the oven itself, di ba? Paano different ovens, iba-iba yung ano.
Yung temperature, yung
temperature. You rely on an oven thermometer. No matter what the oven you have, you always have an oven thermometer. And remember that you are baking using the heat inside the oven. So the thermometer should not be touching the bottom of the oven because you're going to measure metal to metal. So it has to be hanging and it's measuring the heat. Okay, if you want to go further, that's physics. That's movement of energy from bouncing back and forth. So a 350-degree oven that's big versus a 350 oven that's small, you will bake faster in a smaller oven. That's why convection ovens that have fans are bake faster because your movement of energy is faster. So maraming ganon. Tapos yung pan mo, black base ba o white base, kailangan patungan. Bakit black base? Kasi black base your meron because your bottom cookie will turn dark. So it's useless to buy non-stick pan. Don't buy non-stick pan.
Hindi ko alam yun.
It's not worth the investment.
Actually, as Chef Patty is saying...
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chef.
I was going to say, I will send you, George, foolproof cookies. I have frozen cookie dough. You just bake, preheat your oven to 350, put in the cookie dough, and bake it for exactly 15 minutes. Take it out.
That's it.
That's it.
Really?
Exact.
Tatlong address yung padadala.
Yan.
Ako
Sige,
muna no
pick up nyo na
comment.
lang dito.
No comment.
Hindi pa paano kanina nga before the show started, I shared that nga Patty, I tried for the first time baking oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. No? Proud na proud pa ako
Okay.
pinost ko pa sa Facebook eh. And then a friend of mine, Vice President of Citibank, sabi, "George, what's that mess you're cooking? Oh, you're baking, no? It looks so funny, no? It looks like cow dung, no? Yung paano hindi ba yung
Tagalogin mo na, mas maganda pakinggan sa Tagalog eh.
no? Ebak ng baka, di ba? Anyway, you know what she did? She baked her own version of chocolate cookies. Tapos pinadala niya sa akin, pinag-grab deliver niya dito. Ang ganda ng box, ang ganda ng shape ng cookies. From then on, I told myself, never again. Never again will I post.
No, don't be discouraged. No, always try. Baking and cooking is a skill that gets better with practice. So just keep trying.
Ayun. Yan, sila OJ.
You were telling us.
Yeah, actually, as Chef is discussing, kasi dati, medyo, in the olden times, talaga, yung culinary, it's not really being taken seriously. Pero nowadays, kasi I'm also teaching in my alma mater, which is Binil. Yung mga culinary students ko, nagreklamo sa akin kasi they have a subject, culinary math. As in, sabi nila, seryoso, like, kaya daw sila nag-HRIM kasi nga, feeling nila wala nang math, pero hello, culinary math, here I come. As in, specific to culinary. Pero it's easier, than you think daw. Pero it's more about, measurements, kasi it's like building eh. You're building something with the chemical reactions. Yeah, a little bit of chemistry as well. We're just watching, Master Chef, yung mga home cooks. Yung mga people in trade, like mga plumbers, ganon, they can adjust well to baking kasi nga kaya nila i-measure yung mga millimeters, yung mga ganon. Nakakapag sila adapt well to that kasi that's their thing eh. So yun.
Darating din tayo sa pag naging mas advanced pa, culinary calculus, culinary engineering.
Mga sine cosine na yan, mga ganun.
Wala na.
OJ, yung oven nyo sa bahay.
Common misconception.
Yeah, common misconception. OJ, your oven.
Ay, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go muna, Patty.
Okay. Common misconception kasi usually my students will ask me, cooking lang naman yan di ba? Cooking an egg. What's cooking an egg? But I keep telling them, you have to study well. You have to study your math, you need to study your history, you need to study physics, and you need to study chemistry. Because if you understand those, when you read the recipe, you will understand. It's not a matter of mixing and cooking, it's understanding what's going on. So that you can troubleshoot. So, kunwari, palpak yung cookie mo, ano nangyari doon? A-analyze mo ngayon yan. So, that's what I do with my students. I make them think. Because you need to think. You cannot just cook and copy because you're stuck to a recipe. If you think, then you're not stuck to a recipe. You can create your own. So, yun.
You've answered my basic problem with baking, Patty. Nung sinabi mong small ovens are different from big ovens, yun na nangyari. I have a small oven, nasunog yung cookies ko. No?
Masyadong mataas yung kwan mo.
Okay.
And remember when you bake, bago kayo mag-bake, we call this kung kami yung mga or who's going to be baking for a long time, normally, we would set everything first. For example, if I'm going to make use of the temperature at 350, siset ko muna sa 350 bago ko ilalagay yung aking tawag nito, product sa loob. Some people kasi nakakalimutan nila, they think na the oven is there, naka-on na, hindi pa dumating sa 350, nilalagay. Ba't ba chef nasira yung ano bang una tinatanong ko, solid ba oven mo? Meaning, you have a solid oven, meaning yung oven mo naka-strategic na sa 350 kung saan ka lalagay. Kasi kung if you want, for example, if I make a chocolate cake, hindi ko fino-full ng 350 yan. Naglalagay ko ng 325. Tapos if I was given something like 45 minutes to cook it, in under time ko siya. Kasi may carry-over process pa naman ng cooking yan eh.
Correct.
So, regardless of the one you
Oo, no, it keeps on,
keeps on cooking. So hindi mo siya isasagad ng minsan kasi nagda-dry yung niluluto natin because of sinasagad natin yung baking time. You can naman lower, wala naman problema pag ni-lower mo siya. As long as you reach a certain point, minsan sometimes you be gentle with the heat, sometimes you be intense with the heat, but yung cooking time mo mas less lang siya. If you want to do that, you can. At least hindi matawag, especially with chocolate cake. Chocolate cakes are very, very sensitive when it comes to heat. Ingatan nyo na yung chocolate cake nyo parating. It doesn't mean that I'm asking 40 minutes sa 350. You can do that at 35 or 30 minutes depende sa gusto mo ng moistness ng tawag ng cake mo.
Dickie, what dessert would be the toughest to make? What dessert would, if from your experience, would be the toughest?
Well, if you want to, there's pavlova. That's egg whites lang.
Pavlova.
Sa atin dito, it's canonigo. They call it canonigo.
Sa amin naman,
process.
ang tawag doon, floating island.
Yes, that's the one.
Iba pa yung floating island. You cook that in
Iba pa ba yun?
Meron na siyang same yung tawag nito. Binoboil out na siya itong tawag nito. Ito talagang you have to really spun it out and you have to really press it. So I saw that in Australia how they make it. Talagang wow. Sabi ko, okay, pwede, pero it'll take some time for you to master it, pavlovas. But they're all they're better off actually with mixing and everything na kailangan mo na ng maayos na just to have it makatayo lang siya. As in literally sa Australia tumatayo talaga siya yung buo. Just like a cake but it's really really airy. Yun yung selling point doon. Airy na talaga siya. Sa atin
airy meaning mahangin sa loob or something?
Matawag ito is magaan. Magaan siya talaga.
Actually, when you take a bite, Bob, no, it melts in your mouth literally. Yung parang wala kang maramdaman. Except the flavor. Ang sarap. Egg whites lang kasi yun, di ba?
Yes.
And sugar.
Sugar syrup.
Tapos yung egg yolk, gagawin mo naman leche plan. So, walang sayang.
Walang sayang. Zero waste.
Eggshell na lang ang problema.
Pwede i-compose mo yun.
Compost. The garden.
Teka, maano tayo, no? Masyadong social yung mga pinag-uusapan natin. Si Henner kanina, may sinasabi dito teka ha. Henner Esguera. Hindi. At saka sabi niya sa Quinta Market daw, nakahilera doon yung mga ingredients ng halo-halo. Pipili ka. Mas maganda sa Central Market. Nakahilera. Bibigyan ka ng lata ng Liberty o kaya ng Alaska. Doon mo ilalagay. Huwag mo maglalagay. Lata ng gatas.
Parang buffet.
Tapos
halo-halo buffet.
Papatungan na lang ng yelo. Yun.
Dati na ba nila ginagawa yan? Kasi nung naabutan ko dati, hindi pa Parang hihilahin ka lang para kumain. Tapos ituturo mo yung tangkap.
Yun, ikaw galing galing ng nun lata pa ng lata ng gatas na yung ginagawa. Sa Bicol naman, naranasan ko rin yung lata ng gatas. Kaya lang ang laman pansit canton doon sa mga tabi ng train station. Yan, doon kakakain. Lata ng gatas. Anyway.
Mga halo-halo na pero yan yung mga nakasinauna mga nakagis na natin. Sa Supplementary Market, ganun din
Sa Paco Market din.
Yes, ganun din. Yung parang inihila.
Ako lang kung may humihila sa Misericordia, kaya lang iba yung humihila.
Sa may bombero.
pero dapat banggitin natin, hindi pa na sabi. Yung Espasol. Talagang din yan. Ang pinakamasarap na natikman ko from Lumban, Laguna.
Of course, Laguna.
Tsaka Quezon yata, meron din.
Pinipig din yun, di ba? Pinipig din yung Espasol,
Hindi, wala. Yun? Yung galing din sa coconut na...
Galapong, di ba? Hindi ba?
Coconut yan.
Coconut.
Sirin yan.
Kasi yung nabibili na sa mga bus stations, ang liit-liit na, tapos matabang pa. Di ba?
Matabang.
Ang laki-laki ng balot, ang laki haba-haba ng balot. Tapos kalahati na lang pala yung laman. Doon hindi. Buo. Kung ano yung laki ng balot, yun din. At saka yung grabe yung sarap, sobra.
Ito sa Lumban to, Ted. Sa Lumban.
Sa Lumban. May nag-aano kasi, may nagrarasyon dati sa UST, kina Nenet. Na-stop na. Na-stop. Tinanong naman namin kung saan. So, one time, nasa Pagsangan kami, katabi lang yun eh. Tinunto namin. Doon nga, yun, masarap.
Sa Laguna, marami kang mahahagip na ano doon eh. Na
ito pa pinakamaganda eh. Sa Los Baños na lang, Kalamban, di ba? The original.
Maraming original.
The original. Lahat original. Bawat ka, every 25 meters, the original. Kaya lang, hindi raw yun yung masarap. Ang masarap daw yung hindi original.
So may D doon. D original. Hindi original.
D tapos may ano.
Yeah. May letter D.
Grabe yun.
Yung mga orig.
Yung matamis na bao. Nakatikim na ba kayo nun?
Oo.
Coco jam. Diba?
Oo, yung coco jam. Ang pinakamasarap na matamis na bao nun, ano yun eh, ang lalagyan pa niya yung yung infant powder milk. Yung infant milk, doon dinalagay. Sa Angono, Rizal.
Lilinawin ko lang kay Nenet. Ano yan, Nenet? Yung sinabi mo sa amin, Felicidad Galang Perenya. Espasol, na may version ng kalumpit, pero ipapagawa mo kami o kami ang pagagawin mo. Nawin mo lang. Thank you, Nenet.
Sige nga, punta nga kayo doon, tirahin nyo paano gawin yung espasol. Kasi kung kami, yun yung mga fascination namin na parang, ano ba yung mga imagination namin kung paano nila ginagawa to. I mean, you'll be so amazed actually of how, parang, yun ba? Kasi pwede kami gumawa ng tao with pectin. Sila pwedeng ganito. Parang for me, like, I wanna touch this base at the same time. Kung wala na itong pandemic na ito, pwede na mag-tour sa mga lugar na ito just to...
Research Research.
Research talaga.
Yeah.
Kasi lahat is looking for something na... Sayang recipes kasi natin eh.
Ito, there's nothing offensive about what you read right now. Yung sundot kulangot.
Sundot
delicacy
kulangot.
Yes.
Sa Baguio yan, di ba?
Baguio. Sa Malabon, meron silang food tour. Yung mga local delicacies, ginawa nilang tourist attraction. Siguro sa ibang lugar din eh. Katulad sa Laguna, pwede rin yun eh.
Sa Quezon, actually, malalim yung tawag nito. Malalim yung history ng Quezon when it comes to these kakanins, everything, lahat-lahat na. Even yung yung kulangot dito sa Baguio, sa Negros sa amin, tawag niya Kalamay Hati. Nakabao rin yan, pero malagkit. So, malalaki. Yun yung binibigay namin noong araw na ako favorite yan. Pasalubong din siya. Piyaya kasi nakita nyo dito, yung original sa amin, yung maninipis, hindi yung makakapal. So mabibili mo yan sa D original, dun na sa isang mamabay na nakabayong lang na tawag nito, dun na siya nakapackle sa kanya lahat ng tawag nito. For sakto yung tamis, sakto yung crisp. So sakto talaga yung tawag nito, yung pinag-aralan talaga na piyaya. Yung pang giveaway, ganoon yung binibigay nila sa tawag nito.
Sa pasalubong
Pasalubong
sa pasalubong center.
Oo.
So, Manny Savares from Mississauga in Canada.
Yeah, hi.
Ayun.
Manuel.
Oo, no? Ayun. Si dating Colgate.
Chef Dicky, yung Silvanas ba? Is it also in Bacolod or is it in more of in Dumaguete?
Well, it became popular naman lahat naman tayo may version tayo ng Silvanas. Iba-iba yung versions natin. But of course, it gained na maraming na napansin nila sa Dumaguete na siya lang actually meron na ganung klaseng pagkagawa. It's consistent actually. Actually, to be known is you have to be really consistent.
Yun.
Mahirap talaga to maintain that. The consistency, you really have to follow it. Hindi yung talalat ng oras na parang, minsan kasi merong ugali na even sinasabi ko sa estudyante ko hindi pwede yung okay yan. Okay na to. Bawal yan. Because you're selling the product, why will you under your product when you know for the fact that you're going to really push it higher? Hindi mo naman siya pwedeng dayain. Hindi ka parang okay na to, bibitin mo ng tawag ito. You offer what is right. Sample dito sa atin, may misconception yung chocolate sa atin. Ikaw siguro, OJ, Chef Patty, both of you know about yung chocolate natin dito. Kasi even if I had this, may si Buddy Trinidad. You know Buddy Trinidad, di ba?
Si Buddy Trinidad, right.
Si Buddy, sabi nga ni Buddy nung usap kami about that. Kasi dito sa atin, kid, sabi niya, Meng, yung chocolate siya sa atin, ito plateau lang. Sabi ko, yes, kasi nag-plateau na siya because the compound and the couverture, para for them is isa lang. But it's different.
Correct.
Meron siyang tawag nito, the chocolate that you buy sometimes in the market for home bakers, meron kang compound. Which is nothing wrong against that, no? Hindi lang nakapagdating sa pag-specific, there'll be a few people na would understand what a couverture chocolate is. Where it's made from, how you're gonna make it, if you're gonna make bonbons, if you're gonna make them na tawag nito into yung para siyang nakatawag nito, we use a polycarbonate for that one na parang doon mo siya lalagay lahat tapos siya you have to hulma mo siya doon.
The temper.
Tapos the temper mo yung chocolate niyan. And compound chocolate kasi you can't temper. In couverture you have to temper because there's a science for that Tempering a chocolate would regard you to have a 45 degree what they call this, centigrade, which is about 90 plus something in Fahrenheit. Tapos you bring it down to a certain level na para mag-crystallize silang lahat. So it's one of those sciences na parang tapos pagtapos mag-crystallize mo na siya, you have to bring it up again to a working temperature. Depende sa makers ng chocolate, if it's Calabo, if it's what do you call this, if it's Valrhona, ang daming version ng chocolate ngayon, pero they will specify yung certain working temperature mo kung paano mo siya gawin. You have to follow na the back na nandun naman sila lahat. Yun lang, minsan tatanungin sa'yo, chocolate ako dyan siya, parang ganito. Okay, fine. Pero pag tinitignan mo siya, malalaman mo talaga kung what do you call this. You know, that's how we teach our students also the same time. Or people that wants to understand what chocolate is like. Kasi minsan may kamahalan din yung couverture. Or depends on the brand that you want. Depende kung paano ka how you gonna play the game in terms of chocolates. At least it's gonna be easier for you. So may science talaga lahat. So what was explained to you earlier by Chef Patty regarding the percentages. May baker's percentages kami lahat na sinusundan. Kung anong kailangan mong kunin, anong ilalagay mo, ipapalit mo. So you have to be worried about what you change. Same thing as with chocolate, you can mix a combination but you cannot mix a couverture and a compound together because magbabago yung tawag nito. Pero hindi na sila ganun kamahal compared. Mag-iba na siya. Hindi na siya ganun kamahal as compared to before because you have a lot of choices. May single origin ka, ang daming klaseng chocolate sa market ngayon, different players, but they're all good. Malalaman mo talaga na they really have to craft this really well because of course, your market mo is hotel. A hotel and other people who knows about chocolate will be looking for that. So may iba naman na gusto na ito lang because of how you want to sell it. May price reference ka lang. So ito na gagamitin mo. So if I make a chocolate chip cookie, normally I would send it to Inday Patty. May combination pa ng nuts. Meron kang pecan at saka walnuts. So tumataas yung presyo mo. Then the chocolate chip that you use, hindi ka gumagamit ng compound, gumagamit ka ng Calabo. So if my chocolate chip cookie is, you buy it from others, let's say at 82 grams na ganito kalaki, I would sell it to somewhere like 100 pesos because of the ingredient that you use.
So OJ, yung sa point ni Dicky na yan ba yung mga tinuturo dun sa course na yun? Yung sa Benil?
Actually, sir, actually, and not me because I'm teaching some other subject, pero mga kwento ng mga chefs sa amin. Yeah. Talagang separate, I think mga 2-3 pa yata ang baking classes nila. Just baking Kasi iba pa talaga. You have to be a specialist kasi in the trade. So, iba pa yung chocolatier sa pastry kitchen, kala mo pastry chef lang. No. May assignments yun. May chocolatier, nagtatrabaho sa chocolate room. Meron kang yung baker, talagang siya, focus talaga niya yung breads lang talaga for the day. Tapos iba pa yung mga gumagawa ng cakes and regular pastries. Talaga siya, it's a big brigade in itself. Kaya talaga pag pastry chef ka, focus ka talaga doon.
Alam mo, George, hinahanap ko ngayon si Long Tall Howard kasi siya may bake shop dati din, di ba?
Oo nga. Oo.
Ay, banggitin din natin yung isa pang Filipino na delicacy. Marami rin ito sa Laguna at sa Quezon, kalamay.
Yung kalamay.
Kalamay.
Yun naman,
Tapos,
galapong, di ba? Tama ba?
Yeah,
Baka hindi na ako tumama.
Malagkit. Oo.
Malagkit.
Oo, kasi sumikat lalo yung kalamay nung wake ni Dolphy, di ba si Brad Pitt nagsalita doon. Sabi niya, sabi niya? Bob, yung mga kapuso, yung mga kapatid, yung mga kapamilya, nagkaisa dito sa lamay ni Dolphy. Kasi lahat tayo kalamay.
Na yung lolo joke.
Sabi sa'yo, huwag mong gagawin yan eh.
Nahanap ko yung kalembang eh.
Eto si Jojo.
Hindi pa natin napapag-usapan yung mga presyo eh. Tinatanong mo, George, yung halo-halo sa pako. Naabutan ko yata either 25 o 50 eh. Bata pa ako siyempre noon.
Hindi naman ako nagtataka kung bakit inabutan mo ng ganun yun.
Pero alam ko ikaw, gist lang nung panahon mo. Diba? Yung presyo, di natin napag-usapan eh. Kasi very hindi naman cheap ng tawag, kundi very magaan sa bulsa ang presyo ng mga Filipino desserts, di ba? Lalo na yung mga local delicacies. Na mabibili sa palengke.
Ang mahal na ngayon, kahit sa palengke. Hindi na biro.
Natawa ako doon sa sinabi ni Jojo, ang dami niya in-enumerate pero hindi siya mahilig sa sweets eh.
Oo nga. Hindi ako mahilig sa sweets.
Haba ng listahan eh.
Hindi totoo.
Wala kang hilig-hilig.
Tinatago ko yan.
Meron pala ako Jojo, meron pala ako tawag rito. May ganache pala ako dito para sa'yo. Pero bibigay ko muna kay Patty.
But you know,
tanong ni Manny yung oat flour daw.
Have you ever worked with oat flour?
Yeah.
How is it?
Not yet. Almond meal.
Me, I have oat flour kasi I make my own. You just grind it. When we talk about flours, it's just a process of whatever. No, it can be not flours like your almond flours or oat flours. Just to make it fine. The problem with oat flour is that they're not wheat flour. So, in other words, it has no gluten. It has no structure that it can contribute to when you're making. So, it always has to be used in a combination of one of the wheat flours. So, either bread flour, all-purpose flour, or cake flour. Or alam mo, yung flours na yan, marami yan. Ang dami-dami yan. Saka yung mga percentages of glutens is a lot. It's so many. But in the Philippines, we just know it as cake, bread. So
So sa Australia, ganun din. In Australia hindi. Kasi when I was studying baking sa Australia, sa TAFE nila, it's a government, institution that, kung sino gusto mag-aral. Pagdating dun makikita mo talaga sa bodega namin, siguro nakita ko doon kasi mga flours namin, may mga percentages, as was Chef Patty would explain, may mga percentage yan. Meron kang baker's flour, meron kang bread flour, meron kang cake flour, meron kang meals na ganito, meron kang kibble. Marami siyang version. Malilito ka talaga pag tinitignan mo, ano bang kailangan gawin ko? So, yung nilalagyan na yung bread flour, doon kasi pwede standardize ng gobyerno yung protein percentage ng flour nila. Example, yung bread flour is 14%, yung baker's flour nila is 12%, yung cake flour nila sa atin 7, sa kanila 9, yung all-purpose flour natin is 10 doon, dito sa atin is 7 or 8. So may mga percentages sila. That's why you have to be worried about it on how you're gonna mix yung percentages ng flour nyo. Yung harina niyan sa atin dito kasi meron tayong hard, which we normally would make for bread, and all-purpose flour and cake flour. Yun naman na nakita namin sa market dito. But still depends on what we need because we don't really need naman mataas masyadong gluten because Filipino naman susceptible, hindi naman siya may problema naman pagdating sa tinapay. Yun lang, you have to be careful. Be careful also with what we eat sa bread na gusto natin. Ngayon, daming players ngayon, which we call the artisans, the sourdough. Yun yung mga panibagong lumalabas. So they mix a lot of things. But this comes with a lot of aging naman ng kind of starters mo.
Yung
So may
starters yan.
mga starters mo siya kailangan maayusin sa lahat dito. So
Linawin ko lang, gluten, walang kinalaman sa gluta.
wala, hindi. Hindi na po,
Wala.
hindi ka na nakakapo dito.
Pero wala yung allergies na yan eh.
Yeah, wala.
Yung gluten allergies, now lang siya lumabas.
Not sa
Meron?
Filipino, meron na ba ngayon? Celiac?
I mean, lately lang siya naging big deal.
Oh, actually,
Yeah,
it's...
actually, matagal na siya. Matagal na siya,
In-
kaya lang na hindi siya na-identify. So, allergies sa skin, all of a sudden, it's attributed to gluten. So, ang tanong nga ni Manny is there a gluten-free market? There is, but it's not as big as in
Hindi
the
siya.
US or somewhere else because it's not, how is it? It's not, you can only have it detected if you go to a doctor and have your blood test and all that,
Yes.
all of that exams, no? So normally
celiac
people will
disease.
just disregard
Yeah, celiac disease.
celiac disease, which is strange because celiac disease is supposed to be only those parang mostly found on the Norway side. So yung friend ko who's a doctor who went to the US only discovered it, he was already a doctor. So he had to ask his doctor, said, have you seen me? I'm very Chinese and I'm very Filipino. How can I have celiac disease? But it's there. So I did hold, for example, a class on gluten-free and we tried it, and the ones who actually availed of that class were people who were actually looking for alternatives because naman of special needs children. So there's no complete studies showing about focus, but supposedly gluten-free allows them to be more focused. But the takers for that class were very small, which means that the market was not yet ready for it.
Yeah, wala.
So meron,
Hindi pa siya,
may market pero maliit. Very segmented, very specialized.
Actually,
In
it's just like
Australia-
it's just like peanut allergy. Hindi identified masyado dito peanut allergy, but in the States, in Canada, grabe yan,
Big
di ba? Big deal, no? So probably ganun din yung sa gluten. We haven't really identified it, but probably a lot of people are gluten allergic here. No?
We don't know
Yeah.
kasi rice eaters naman tayo kasi sa Pilipinas eh. Actually, gluten is, I work in a gluten-free shop in Australia. And Australia has around, how many population of Australia before in 2010? Around 22 or 23 million sila, buong continent ng Australia. But 4.5 million of Australians have or celiac disease. Ganun sila na tawag nito. That's why when I was in the shop that we have, ang ginagamit namin, because gluten doesn't have any structure like flour. It has gluten and gliadin. Ito wala talaga totally. Wala. Because what they use it's not wheat that they're using. What we're using is rice. Ginagrind yung rice to what do you call this, to a powder. So we have brown, we have the white, yung ginagamit namin doon sa shop. Tapos we have other mixtures na ginagamit namin. And we always add psyllium gum, psyllium husk. Tapos sa santan gum is our structure. We have the same thing, kompleto yan, eggs, everything. Our baking soda or baking powder namin is gluten-free also the same time. Sabi ko, ba't naglagay pa kayong gluten-free? Hindi naman kayo gluten. Hindi naman kayo galing sa tao ito. It's mostly the root crops na ginagamit for gluten. So yung market sa Australia, mataas doon tawag ito. Even the pizza base that we use.
Double O flour.
Yes, what we use is psyllium husk, the gluten-free flour, and olive oil. Tatlo lang yung items na yun. Yun ang minimix ko parati. It's almost like a liter of, what do you call this? A sack of like 2.3 or 3.5 kilos of flour. Then another set of like 25%, which is around 1.2 to 2 kilos of psyllium husk. Tapos mimix ko na yan. Tapos flatten yan sa tawag nito. In the machine, then we flatten it out. Then araw-araw yun yung ginagawa ko. Because nauubos na agad yan. These are all frozen. And they're really, really good for people who have what we call gluten-free. na looking for gluten-free. Actually, wala masyadong movement. Tama si Chef Patty when she said na konti-konti lang talaga meron dito sa atin yan. But we don't know it yet how much Filipinos would have that kind of a disease also at the same time. Hindi naman siya problemado. One time kasi when I was in the shop sa Australia, dumaan sa akin yung nanay. Sabi niya, tatanong sa akin, napakain ko ni anak ko ng tawag nito, ng gluten-free galing sa inyo, yung breads niyo, yung brownies niyo, lahat na, pati pies niyo, lahat. Bakit meron pa rin siyang tawag nito? Nagbe-break out pa rin siya sa likod niya. Kasi nagbe-break out kapag may celiac ka eh. Hindi mo mailabas kasi lahat, hindi mo maidumi lahat. So, tanong sa ano bang pagkain na ginagamit? Ano bang kinakain niya? He eats beef a lot. Beef, chicken. Sabi ko, did you check if your beef is fed with grains or fed with what do you call this? With grass? Sabi niya, it's grain fed.
Yun.
There you go.
Usually.
Yun. Sabi ko, take it out, move to grass fed. Kasi kung hindi mo siya move sa grass fed na yan, sa grass na yan, magkakaproblema ka talaga. So they have to check everything. That's why the Australian government is really pretty keen when it comes to celiac diseases because they're careful with the wheat growers sila eh. They're bread eaters sila at the same time. So part of the diet is bread. So yun yung inaayos ng gobyerno. Until to this day, I guess gluten-free shops are everywhere in Australia. You can do it online or they do it on weekend markets. Nandun sila lahat. It's amazing actually.
Nakakatuwa dito sa episode na to. It's not just about eating desserts. It's now how to make desserts, And which brings me to this question. Very important question. Where do you source your ingredients? Like for instance, my sister bakes also, no? Si Avi. She bakes food for the gods, mga ganyan, and cookies, and she sources from Quiapo. Pati yung mga fruit preserves, no?
Yes,
ang gaganda pa nga ng mga timba doon, yung mga balde nung, where do you source yours?
Doon din, Quiapo din kami. Tawag nito, kung equipment, Quiapo din. Kung tawag nito for ingredients, Quiapo din makukuha mo. But dati kasi Quiapo talaga is the place to go when it comes to what do you call this, with kung saan ka bibili. For example, yung mga fruits for what's that? Christmas na cake.
Fruit cakes. Fruit cakes.
May specifics pa yan. Minsan, pag sobrang tawag ito, mas sobrang syrupy yung tawag ito, mga candied item niya, hindi namin kinukuha yan. Kailangan may specific na brand or SNW ba yun? Na brand na binibili parate. But some one of those American brands na hindi masyado mataas yung syrup niya, yun yung ginagamit. So you can buy that in Quiapo. It's a small street inside.
Yeah, yun na nga eh. Near Tiague yun no?
Tiague, so pagharap mo sa Excelente, a little bit corner, yung kaliwado, yung shop na yan. It sells everything there, basta baking lahat. From your lard to pati scooper mo, lahat ng tao nito, gusto mo malaman sa baking, nandun lahat sa lugar na yan. But that area you should know about kung mag-umpisa ka, kasi makakuha mo yan. Kasi if you go to some yung mga bago ngayon, all about baking, sa chocolate lovers. Some they have and some they don't. But you can request from them the same time because they will give it to you. And if you know players like sa internet who can help you out ngayon because everybody's into baking right now, a baker, something's one of those shops, one of those internet na group that they will really help you out of anong kailangan mo. I forgot
What about you? What about you, Chef Patty? Where do you source yours?
Well, if you're going to source by bulk, I mean, Quiapo is the best place because they will deliver, I think, for a minimum of 10,000 pesos or something like that. But if it's just small pieces and, if you're going to buy 1 or 2 pans, you don't have to go all the way to Quiapo. You can source them now in places like what Dicky mentioned, all about baking and chocolate lovers and all of that. And Facebook marketplaces, there's a lot. There's also a Viber group called Home Baking. It's all there. In fact, they have classes. They'll guide you to Instagram posts and all of that. Lazada, you can find. Shopee, you can find for equipment. Usually like that. Of course, kunwari kami ni Vicky, if we want to buy, for example, an oven where an investment will come into play, then we really have to choose from reputable places. Medyo yung Lazada at saka Shopee, yung mga maliliit, yung mga scoopers, yung mga palipang pantada, yun, parang ganon. So those are the places that we go to. They're inexpensive for small items. I just wanted to say something. The 00 flour. Somebody mentioned about 00 flour.
Farina?
00. Yeah, 00 flour is not a kind of flour. It's the way the flour is milled. So when they say 00, that's finely milled flour. So you can have 00 all-purpose flour, 00 cake flour. And I know that because I'm developing a class for pasta, and they usually use 00 flour because it's finely milled flour. But it doesn't have to do with the gluten content. It's just the milling process. Yeah.
Sabi ni Shelly, may tips daw ba kayo on how to make tiramisu tsaka kasaba cake?
No, where to buy? Where to buy?
Buy.
Cassava cake, yeah.
Cassava cake? Ako, wala akong problema sa cassava cake eh. Basta cassava cake, may Don Benito, basta sa malapit, basta mambago. Masarap lahat kasi.
Yun, saan? Like, specifically?
Don Benito, na sa
kami here in San Juan.
Oo. Basta meron sila kasi isang ingredient lang man yan. Pero naman na saying na how they cook it, but makita mo naman talaga sa pagkagawa nila ng tao nito ng cassava cake nila. Malinis.
Wala silang the original.
Wala silang, yun ang walang the original. Tiramisu, well, if you really want to have, good tiramisu, you have to ask us, chef that we could make you one because it meron silang tawag ito ingredient na mascarpone na yung ginagamit dyan. So it's quite expensive to have that. But if you want to have the real taste of of tiramisu, then ask a chef who can make it for you. It's worth it's worth it actually.
The price.
The price that you pay.
Yung iba kasi shortcut ni cream cheese lang eh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Iba talaga yung lasa.
Oo. Diba, pag tawag ito, Jay, sa inyo, sa school nyo, may si Dante. Dante's with you?
Yeah, Dante Avalos, is that correct?
Yes.
He's actually my classmate since high school. Tapos talaga siya, into baking ever since.
Yes.
Nung high school pa lang.
He's a good pastry chef. I mean, kahit sa isang mo sampayan, kakasayan, they'll come up with really good good desserts. Actually, maraming desserts na gusto kong pwede i-share sa Pilipinas kung meron lang tawag nito. But in the Philippines kasi marami tayong sariling ating desserts din eh. Na kaugalian din natin at the same time na if you're gonna make something, sometimes we go beyond din na gagawa ka for yung mga tawag nito, ng mga desserts na nakakaiba rin na hindi rin sa ating gawa. We're just copying it from other people but redefining it. Like pwede natin gawin ng calamansi, pwede natin gawin ng ganito. Pwede naman siya, anything naman is playable when it comes to the desserts so we have to offer in this country. Pwede naman baguhin niya lahat eh.
Yeah, ngayon si Jojun sabi niya 10-4 cassava cake daw sa Endomingo.
On Endomingo Street. Yeah.
Suzuki siya. Ako naman meron isa na talagang nakakabata tuwing kinakain ko. Pero I would like to ask for recommendations kung saan yung the best egg pie.
Egg pie. Eh di syempre doon sa bakery.
Sa bakery yun talaga yun.
Sa bakery yun.
The original.
The original.
Panaderia.
Sa panaderia yun eh. Sa Long Life.
Long Life, di ba? Iba na pangalan.
Johnny
Gusto
Life.
na egg pie na matino, hindi naman matino, sa Lord's Toast. Gusto mo yung Portuguese na style.
Lord's Toast. Ano naman yan?
Lord's Toast.
Social naman
Egg
yan,
tart.
Vicky.
You know ano?
Portuguese.
Si Eileen Stowe kasi, the sister of Lord Stowe. Lord Stowe passed away already. Si Eileen Stowe is a close friend of mine. Every time we go to Macau, she brings us to yung commissary and everything. Believe it or not, 80% of her employees are Filipinos.
Ito yun.
Oh.
Nakita ko yun sa...
Ang gagaling raw ng mga Pinoy. No? As a matter of fact, ilang beses siya pumupunta dito sa Pilipinas para magninang sa mga kasal ng mga empleyado niya. Ayun.
Ninang.
Galing.
Oh. Nice.
And the funny thing is she doesn't even know how to bake. It was her brother who started it. When her brother died at a very young age, she was just forced to take over the business.
Yun si Lord Stowe.
Oo. At hindi talaga Lord yun. Tinawag lang siyang Lord sa Hong Kong. But he's
Buti
not
hindi
really a
Stowe
Lord.
away. Mas mahirap.
Pero maganda yung tawag ito, the way they make it sa Macau. Nakita ko rin yun sa Macau. Tsaka Pinoy talaga. From the, what do you call this? From the kahera to the personnel sa likod.
Puro Pinoy.
Puro Pinoy lahat.
Very trustworthy daw talaga ang mga Pinoy. But, you know, what opened my eyes sa dessert making also, no? Yung my nephew, he was supposed to be a guest also, kaya lang he has other commitments now. He has another one, anak ni Mel, crack.ph naman, ano? Oje, ano mga ginagawa niya? Yung crack pie ba yun?
Actually, yan. Isa pang ano yun, super fan ni Christina Tosi. So yung crack pie ni Christina Tosi sa Momofuku Milk Bar, ni-recreate niya. So talagang super sinful, super tamis. Pero he also has variations on cookie dough na medyo soft-centered, medyo borderline hindi na chewy parang medyo liquidy na, pero masarap pa rin. Ano lang talaga siya, very rich and kung talagang sweet tooth ka, enjoy ka.
And he started out with what? Yung mga bilog-bilog?
Macarons.
Yeah, the macarons. He started with macarons, graduated to crack pie, tapos yung cookie dough. And when he delivers cookie dough, or when people pick up the order from his house, he even serves them with gin and tonic.
May pairing din.
May pairing din siya. Galing eh. And it's huge, no? Ilang beses na siya na dyaryo, former Philippine Airlines pilot who became a baker.
Self-taught din siya eh. Self-taught siya. He didn't enroll in any culinary school.
Galing. Well, it helped a lot also when they placed his pictures. Saka ng gwapo eh. So, ang daming umorder sa kanya.
Yun yung mahirap gagawin actually macarons eh.
Yeah.
Macarons.
Ganon.
Did it before, pero mahirap siya talaga because it's almond meal. You have to may consistency na tawag ito that you have to have a lava type na madahan-dahan yung dilig niya. Hindi siya gano'n bigla. Kasi the moment na gano'n yan, you overmix it already. So kailangan siya ng ganito.
Naku, si Jojo, no?
May, yun.
Turones de Casuy.
Pati
yung balat niyan kinakain, di ba? Yung papel.
Yun, masarap dun.
Oo. Pa rin ang tawag doon, di ba?
Pambalansi yun eh. Pati yung turones de mane. Ganon din.
May nabibili pa bang ganon?
Di ba lasa nyo yun? Yung dulo nun, yung balat nun, parang lasang hostya.
Oo. May nabibili pa ba? May nabibili pa bang ganon?
Meron.
Yeah.
Meron yan. Kasi gumagamit ang tawag ito do ostya actually. If nabibili ko dati pag gumagawa ka ng Montelimar na mixture of nuts. But it's full of sugar yun. Tapos nalagay namin sa ilalim yung tawag dito, yung ostya na yan. It's like a square na papel. Parang siyang half na size na yellow pad. Nili-layout mo na siya gano'n sa kahoy. Hulog mo na lahat ng luto mo na stuff doon, yun yung cover it up. Gano'n yung tawag nito. Pastillas sa... yung mga Espanyol natin ng pastillas de pili, yung almondes, yung mga ganong klaseng ginagawa. But it's still available, but you only have to look for it.
Well, Diki mentioned pastillas, no? Dami rin variety ng pastillas.
Pastillas de leche, grabe yun. Paborito.
Which one is the best?
Of course, Nueva Ecija.
Sambales.
Sambales, meron yan?
My grandfather used to bring to us, and then I tried making it. It's very hard to make because it's dry. It's not your usual pastillas that you roll in sugar. This one is dry. You set it out, and then you cut it into batons, and then it's folded and wrapped in Japanese paper. So wala pa ako nakaka-taste niya outside of Sambales. Except Bulacan. I think Bulacan had. But it's very hard to find. It's very, very hard. So when I have cousins who go home to Zambales, I order like, give me 1,000 pesos worth, and then I freeze it. Tapos
Where in
I hoard
Zambales?
that one I hoard. Iba.
Where in Zambales? Sa Iba?
Iba?
Okay.
Dulo pa.
Iba.
Uh-huh. Hindi, paano, a friend of mine has a parang Airbnb in Zambales. I think it's in Iba. I buy my mangoes from him. No? Maybe he could source that out from me.
Panahon ngayon.
Yeah.
Ano naman
Si ano?
I want to
Kilala mo
watch
yan, Bob?
how
Si
they make
Andy?
it.
Si?
Si Andy?
Oo, si Andy.
Andy
Yung
P.
DJ din.
Andy P.
Oh.
You know what he did? Paano he has a big property there? Ang ginawa, he adopted all the horses of Taal Volcano.
Nilipat
Ngayon,
niya doon.
Oh,
Ang ganda na ng itsura ng mga kabayo. Ang lulusog na.
wow. Cool.
Oh.
Galing eh. Tsaka yun,
Puro mangga
grass-fed.
kinakain.
Grass-fed yung mga kabayo doon. Kaya
Grass-fed.
they really look like horses now. Unlike before, they really looked emaciated. Sa daan, kawawa naman.
Kawawa
Puro
naman.
lupa kinakain yun.
Oo. Ayun. Zambales Pastit, si Jojun talaga. You should have joined us, Jojun.
Sukal lang.
Wala daw hilig sa sweets si Jojo. Walang kahilig-hilig.
Huwag kang maniwala. Wala.
Grabe, And si Shelly is your sister-in-law, right?
Yes, married
Ni
to my
Patty.
brother.
Ayun.
Kasi cousin ko si Shelly.
I see.
Ayun.
Ayun.
Yung daddy ni
Sample,
Shelly
no?
tsaka daddy ni George magkakasama sa simbahan.
Oo.
O, Jojo.
Teka, ano yan?
Oh, sure. Anong brand yan, chef?
Shoko, tinry ko lang to. This is an old brand actually. So, you can find this at, what do you call this?
68%. Yum.
Yes.
Matamis pa yan.
Yum.
Matamis pa to.
Matamis pa rin yan.
Mm.
Pero
Ako
60%.
Ako kasi, choco mucho lang ang alam ko.
Actually, nakakain ako ng tawag nito, yung buo na tawag nito na 100% cacao mass.
Oh.
Yung ginagamit na sa mga tsokolate yung kinakain ko yung buo, yan talagang sarap. It's high.
Teka, ito.
Yun.
Pwede ba ipaliwanag nyo to, Patty, Jojo, at saka Dicky and OJ, bakit wala ng bar none ngayon?
Barnan?
Sa States siguro meron pa.
Wala na.
Wala na rin.
Wala na.
Wala na
And that's
siguro.
the best chocolate bar I've ever tasted.
Wala tayo. So, tinanggal nila kasi ikaw lang bumibili eh.
Ikaw na lang.
I was going to say.
Ay, bago tayo
Lion.
magtapos, dapat banggitin din natin yung choknut.
Yes.
Ayun, of course.
Oo,
siyempre.
ano yan?
Celebrate. Yuling
Maple.
Pinoy.
Hindi siya Teddy, nag-ano na rin siya, nagda-diversify. Meron na rin siyang chocolate spread. Limited nga lang, pero meron na. At yung
Chocolate
may
ice
drinks
cream.
Oo,
Yun,
hindi, iba yun,
sinasama,
yung mga-
ice cream.
Ibang
sinasama
kumpanya
sa
yun,
pop
yung chocolate
ng
mismo.
ice cream, di
Yung
ba?
chocolate gumawa mismo ng spread sa sarili nila.
Meron sila ngayon.
Oo.
Yung chocolate ice cream, sa uva dati, yan sa kapatid ko. Yun yung ice cream yun nung araw. By accident lang yun. Kumakain na siya ng chocolate, na siya ice cream. Parang
Sinasama.
pinagpud niya doon. Tapos
Toppings.
minix niya, tapos tinaping niya, tapos
Toppings,
sinagay niya sa ref, pinapinamig niya ulit. Tapos nung tumigas na, he ate it again. Sabi niya, why not? Diba?
Ito yung restaurant niya dati, Uva.
Uva. Hanggang ngayon meron pa yan, pwede ka mag-order.
Meron pa
Pero
rin.
ngayon, siyempre wala na kasi they had to, shut down some of the operations because of the pandemic. So, but they're coming back naman.
Kala ko si George, kaya alis sa camera,
May alarm.
kahanap ng choknut eh. Kala ko meron ka sa tabi mo eh.
Hindi, may nag-alarm, di ko maintindihan kung nasa.
Yun na nga.
Cellphone.
Parang parang horror movie. May tumutulog dito.
Hindi, nandyan sa inyo, hindi sa akin.
George, yun pala yung isang grupo sa Facebook, yung Safe Bakery and Cafe Philippines. Kung gusto nila mag-check ng mga tawag nito. Catherine is the one who's heading this group. Magtanong ka lang sa kanya, leave a note, leave a message, and she will answer you kung saan ka kukuha ng mga ingredients na gusto mo or equipment. So,
okay. What's the name of the group again?
That's the Safe Bakery and Cafe Philippines.
Okay.
She will point to you the right direction always kung saan ka kukuha ng kailangan mo.
Paano? Ang alam ko lang yun, La Germania generates love.
love.
Generates cooking, generates love.
Eh, yung Wonderlight Gusto Bags. All right, ang Wonderlight. Ading Fernando yun, kaya sintonado.
Yun.
Si
Teka,
Adin.
I think almost time to say our goodbyes again. Grabe, ang dami natin natutunan ngayon para tayo pumasok sa Le Cordon Bleu sa Ateneo. I wonder what happened to that. Patty, do you know what happened to that? Walang pasok ngayon eh.
Oo nga. Sayang, no? I know they transferred the campus to Makati. That's what I know.
I see.
Yeah.
So wala na sa Arete.
Natuloy.
Wala na sa Arete.
Kasi parang kulang sa Arete. I had a student who was enrolled there, and she said, I think she's the first batch. So she said that they had moved part of the campus to Makati.
I see. Paano sinasabi nila? It's the first Le Cordon Bleu na may window so you can see outside while you're cooking. No, kaya hindi ba ang ganda-ganda ng campus ng Ateneo?
Inspired.
Yeah.
While baking.
Sa amin sa Australia, walang window eh.
Yun na nga eh. Karamihan naman wala eh, di ba?
Wala.
As a basement yung mga kitchens usually eh.
Yes.
Kayo lang eh.
Sa amin kasi walang sa Le Cordon Bleu sa Australia, walang window talaga yun. So you see only your weighing scale, your ovens, your freezers, your equipment. Yun na makakita mo parate. Kasi yun naman talagang titignan mo parate eh. Hindi ka madi-distract because sometimes your computation is really, really important kung ano naka-specify dun sa menu mo o sa tawag nito sa recipes mo. So that's why the teachers would specify parate, sundan nyo yan, ganito. Kasi kung hindi, talagang literally magiging sapatos siya.
Sapatos.
Yikes.
Okay, teka, OJ, parting words.
Well, thank you again for inviting me second week in a row. And I'm happy to have shared this with such esteemed chefs. Hindi ako chef, pero mahilig ako kumain and I appreciate it. Siguro because I'm working and teaching in the industry. So talagang siguro mga hindi ko nagawa. Matutong magluto. Kaya appreciate ko na lang yung mga niluluto ng mga chefs natin. Well, actually, what's good about the Philippines right now, kasi nga, marami na nagbukasan na available items. Actually, we can do locally, no? Like, Chef Dicky was saying about Valrhona and Callebaut. We have our own mga oro, yan, yung mga ganyan, na pwede na rin world-class chocolates and other local sources na, yun nga, tangkilikin na lang din natin. And then siguro being an educator, siguro we should impart to the next generation yung mga recipes para hindi makalimutan kasi it's part of our culture na rin talaga in history. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, OJ. Come to think of it, the three of you are educators in culinary. Patty, final words.
Don't get discouraged. I think you should just keep trying. Food, savory and sweets are, cooking and baking are, like I said, skills that only get better with practice. So just keep practicing. Do not rely on a recipe. Understand what you're doing. Look at, use your senses when you're cooking or you're baking. Look, taste, smell, hear what's happening so that you know exactly how to maneuver yourself into the whole process.
Very nice. Thank you. And I'll take you up on your promise to have something delivered to me as soon as ASAP.
I will. Yeah. Just send me your address.
I will. Dicky.
Tatlong address.
Wala akong kinalaman dyan.
Si Dikoy, I'm actually surprised, no? Paano si Dicky, for me, is a really simple guy, very humble guy. I didn't know he's a rocket scientist. Dicky, thank you so much for gracing this one.
Oh, don't take my word seriously, okay? you just
Para ka palang no? Yung isang presidente dyan, no? Don't take my word seriously.
Oh, no!
Bumawi na daw. Nag-backtrack again.
Oo. Paano naman mag-sorry naman yan, pabayaan mo na lang sila. No, actually, in the same thing as what I'm just echoing both what was said earlier. including when my brother was saying sa culinary nung araw, all of you to understand what you do is to marry your ingredients really well. You need to understand what you put in your food and whatever that you do in your food, kung bagay ba siya, how you gonna marry them, everything. Yun na yung kailangan mo dun. In terms naman sa tawag nito, sa dessert, you have a lot of options. There are a lot of choices and options that you want to do. You can play with, you can mix with. Hindi naman siya, example, banana cake na lang ako. Hindi ko na siya pwede lalagyan ng iba pa. You can go beyond that if you want to. You can have a flavor of mixtures if you want to with an orange or something with the tang and everything. Kompleto naman yan eh. It's playable. So whatever that you do, kung kailangan matuto ka, mapaso ka muna bago ka matuto lahat. So but do not stop. Whatever you learn, whatever you hear from us now, you get it also from other people who are, baka you looking up to another chef or something else, go. I mean, follow. Whatever that you think that you can make a dent out of this business, it could be changed. Everything is set already, pero yun lang, it's how you perceive and how you do things right. Kung paano mo siya ma-change o paano mo siya ma-further pa-enhance. Because the moment you start cooking or baking, pwede mo naman siya ante pataas eh. Nasa iyo na yun kung anong gusto mong gawin eh. So, play on. You don't have to stop it kung kalihim na lang pala ako, hindi na ako pala pwede gumawa ng tawag nito, ng Spanish bread na pula. Ganon. So, play with it. Have fun when you're in the kitchen or when you're baking or you're cooking. That's the only way for us to understand what we do. Enjoy.
Thank you, Dikoy. All right, very nice, no? And Teddy S.
Okay. Maraming salamat, Dicky, kay OJ, tsaka kay pati kay Yeye kanina para sa matamis na usapan. Sana maraming natutunan yung mga kaboomers natin. At siyempre, salamat muli sa
T-shirt.
kina Roy Orjales, Design Makati, tsaka sa BioFresh at katerno niyan sa May 27, yung National Chinelas Day.
Kala ko palaspas eh. Tapos na Palm Sunday.
May 27 pala yun.
Oo.
Yun.
Birthday ni Idol, Jesse Robredo.
Okay. Bob.
Yung music trip natin sa Zeno Radio or Zeno FM. Ang pangalan po ng channel ay Juke Back. Juke space BACK. Paki-search na lang sa Zeno. Kung trip nyo lang music trip, juke back as in ganun style. So kung si Dick yun, may inis yun. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much mga kaibigan. At saka again, thanks to our guests. Dami namin natutunan at ang dami naming na lasap, although sa imagination pa lang. To those of you willing to send us dessert, Dicky, Patty, padala mo na lang sa amin. OJ, thank you rin.
Ano daw? Ano sabi?
Sino sa inyo
Magsasend
gusto
ka ng dessert.
magpadala, padala na lang.
Kami na magbabayad ng delivery fee.
Ikat nyo.
Yun.
Kami na bahala sa delivery fee.
Ayun.
Thank you very much. Next week, Joke Back King ang kausap natin. Yung pinakamaraming ngipin.
Si Edgy, alias Bobot.
Kakanta tayo ng The-Sensations, yung mga ganyan. Anyway.
Saka yung may Pledge of Love.
My Pledge of Love. Mga ganon, di ba? O nga pala, don't forget Masterclass, my podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're still talking about podcasts. Yun ang topic natin. How you can start a podcast, how to go about it, and the ideal length, the ideal way of doing it. So please follow Masterclass George Boone on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until next week, we'd like to thank Patty, Dicky, and OJ. Hey, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have you around. Joe June, thank you very much also for being in the background as a kibitzer. You contributed a lot also. No? And hopefully you join us next time around. Till next week, ad maiorem Dei Gloriam. Good night. God bless.